my people, and if you're watching live, checking us out on YouTube, or listening on your favorite podcast provider, you are most definitely my people. Welcome to another episode of Botched, Spots, and Chair Shots. We still have high hopes of delivering quality wrestling content, and if not, we'll sprinkle in Bama Dave, so we still get over. I'm your host, a chef by trade and a mark by choice. I am the Will Gray, and I'm glad to be here on this journey. And tonight, that journey is History of the Strap with the Big Gold Belt, Volume 2. Joining me tonight, he is the host of the Bammer Chatter podcast. He is the most professional wrestling podcaster in the pro wrestling world. Most importantly, he's my friend, Bama Dave. Dave, welcome back, man. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Dang you for beating us last Saturday.
That was a game. I literally held my breath all day on Saturday. I even said in a couple group threads, I was like, I'm going silent. I'm not going to say anything until that game is done.
Yeah, I'm blaming my coworker at the church I work at. We do a podcast there. Shout out Madison Assembly Podcast. And he said, we had this little wager. If the Tennessee won, I had to wear something Tennessee on the next podcast video. And if Alabama won, my pastor, who's a Tennessee fan, had to wear an Alabama shirt. So this dude said, get comfortable wearing red, pastor. Jinxed it right there.
Me and Marcus from World Elite made a bet as well, depending on who won the LSU-UT game. We were going to wear the opposite team's colors on our shows, and he held true and even sang Rocky Top on World Elite. Man. So big shout out to him.
Gotcha.
Moving around the group tonight is joining me, as always, is the man who comes with his own disclaimer, and that is the opinions of the Yellow Shoe Guy are his and his alone. They do not reflect Botch Spots and Chair Shots or the Smacked Raw Podcast Network. Bobby Mack. Bobby, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm a little cold, man. After complaining about no AC in Texas, apparently the big guy upstairs turned the AC on.
I mean, global warming, am I right?
Yeah, dude. It's like in the 70s. I'm freezing.
God, I hate you. I woke up this morning, it was 36 degrees, and my car was frosted over. Like, I had to start the car to warm it up this morning. So if it was still in the 70s, I would be peachy with it.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 88 this weekend, but...
Lucky. And rounding out the panel, as always, perched upon her iron throne in her boss bitch's corner, she is the Hova to my Beyonce. She is the Bonnie to my Clyde. She is the boss bitch, Miss Allison Siegel. Allison, how are you?
I'm good.
Just good?
But clearly I'm Beyonce.
Well, that's what I always put that one backwards. I don't know why I always feel like I need to be Beyonce. It's 2022, though. You can't judge me. Maybe a little bit, but you're going to judge me?
I'm the Queen Bee. I'm Beyonce.
Queen Bee.
All right. Well, Dave, the last time you were on the show, we didn't do this, but you have you've heard it a few times, so I'm going to ask all of you the same question I do every week. What has you guys pissed off for greatness tonight in the world of professional wrestling? No specific order. Just hop in whenever you want. Dave, you want to go first?
Yeah, go whenever you want. Dave, you're first.
Hey, it's my show. I'm just going to make this up as I go. I'm not really sure what's going on.
We're both from the South. You know in the South it's ladies first.
Oh, look at Dave being polite. Miss
He
Siegel
always makes me go last, just so we're clear.
Well, it's because you're a co-host. It's the, what's it called? It's the courtesy to have your guests go first and then the host go last.
Unless that guest is a woman, then the woman goes first.
Dave, you can go first, or you can default to Allison. Then Allison can go first. That's fine.
I'm defaulting. Go ahead, Allison.
Okay, so we're going to adjust my normal rant a little bit. So... on an episode that's supposed to be all about title belts, I'm still pissed that AEW only gave their women 10 minutes.
I can agree with that.
And one match. You have two women's belts on a show that's supposed to be all about your belts. 10 minutes.
We've been riding really high on the women's wrestling thing the last few weeks, so I definitely agree that right now between the big three in the States, Impact, WWE, and AEW, I think AEW is the weakest of those three with their both the quality of content, the quantity of content, and the content itself. Bama Bobby, you got anything?
Did you call me Bama Bobby?
Bama or Bobby. I could, if you're into the Bama Bobby, if you're into the whole brevity thing, whatever you want to be, man.
Form a tag team will be the Bama Boys.
The Bama Boys. It would be a step up from FSU.
Actually, there is a Bama Boys tag team on the Legends Wrestling Federation StreamNet, but we just broke up because I turned heel. So.
Bama Dave the heel.
It could be Bama Shoes.
Bama Shoes.
Crimson Shoe.
The Crimson Shoe guy.
There we go.
There you go.
That's Bama Dave's alter ego if he is the Crimson Shoe guy.
Yep.
I guess going off what Allison said about the women, I've not heard that there wasn't a big feature of them on there. Just because I think AEW's got one of the weaker ones, but the fact that Riho was the woman that they chose to like bring out, like she's like 4'0". She's one of Omega's people, so maybe this is saying that Omega's coming back soon because I know she's been gone for a while, and I don't know. I think it was just a waste of time to have her be the woman that goes out there and saves their champ.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I had this rant a little while ago that you have Jade Cargill as your TBS champion, you have Toni Storm as your
Jade's
AEW.
not the champion anymore.
You know what I mean? She she still is. She just doesn't have her title with her right now.
Right.
But then you have Toni Storm, who's the AEW Women's Champion, but yet still, what's everything all about on Dynamite and on Rampage? Dr. Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter. Which lets me know, okay, they're in the inner circle of Tony Khan. They butter up. They probably kiss butt every single week. Thank you so much for signing me. #1 signing you ever had, and everything like that. And of course, I'm a doctor. I fly back and forth, and I'm always here, and I put in the extra hours. And by the way, did you know I'm almost engaged to Adam Cole? Yeah. So the guy that gave you your only loss when Wednesday Night Wars were going on, the only reason you lost to NXT is because my boyfriend was on the show, and now you signed him. Yeah. So can I have the extra 10 minutes of TV time? Yay! Thank you, Tony. Stop it. Your girls have titles. Showcase them, please.
Yeah, but did you notice this week was the first time that they had actually mentioned Punk and the Elite during the episode? Shivani said it.
Right.
I heard with the sheets reporting that the Elite were making their rounds and they would be coming back shortly. I know Omega's been on an excursion with the video game stuff in Japan anyways, so his forced suspension was going to be time off because he was already going to be there.
Right. Then why put the trios titles on them?
That's what I thought too. I was like, I didn't think that was necessarily the call either, but it was almost like those titles were made for them. We knew that Omega was big in bringing them into AEW. He was big in designing the belt, so it was only a matter of time before they wore them. I just think I think the title should have been more than 24 hours old before they got an asterisk attached to them.
Yeah, when you say it was made for them, the whole place was made for them. Like if it wasn't for them, they wouldn't be on a national spotlight.
Yep, it's their playground.
True. All right, Bobby Dave, which one of you want to go next?
It don't matter. It don't matter. You can go ahead, Bobby.
Where am I going next to?
What, Bobby? What has you pissed off for greatness? What has you the most worked up to Riho? Oh, that's what you were going with? Was the Riho?
Is it 420 yet?
No.
Oh, okay.
That's just the TikTok number, right?
Yeah, apparently.
It was for a few days. All right, Dave, well, you're up then, man. What has you pissed off for greatness tonight, my brother?
I'm pretty happy when it comes to the landscape of pro wrestling. There's really nothing going on in any particular promotion that's got me angry right now. It's still the same. It's still the same thing that I always have a problem with, and that is that just people can't enjoy the product. It's like people are constantly looking at social media for the one thing they disagree with, and then they either go on a tirade about it or they retweet it or whatever. I don't know if you guys saw, I got a chance to call in and thank her for doing it, but Mickie James dropped a banger of a soundbite yesterday on Busted Open about how respect is so important in this business, and how if you don't go out there and give it everything you got in your in-ring work as well as on the mic, there's a good chance you'll never get that time again. So every time you go out there, do your best at everything you do. And then some loser had to retweet what she said and said, yeah, this coming from a woman who was handed scripted promos all the time. Yeah, we can really take to heart what you have to say. I tweeted back and said, dude, she's got more title reigns than you have followers. I wouldn't talk right now. So, I mean, seriously, the stuff that people just look to try to make a name for themselves off somebody else, when you know for a fact the person that you're trying to make a name off of could stretch you back and forth in the ring if they ever met you face to face, or worse, they could bury you with one sentence and with one tag of a real other legend. they could get a whole fleet of guys to come in after you, and you could get blocked or banned off of Twitter in a heartbeat. So my thing is this. We need to get back to a place of accountability. If you would not say this to their face, don't tweet it. It's that simple.
I completely agree. I think a lot of people are keyboard warriors, especially in 2022. I feel like the pandemic especially made a ton of them because people spent so much time online. But big shout out to Mickey James. Big fan of the show, Botched, Bots, and Share Shots alumni. She loved Allison's glasses. Wasn't it your glasses?
It was my glasses.
Yeah.
She's amazing. Miss Hardcore Country, she's an absolute legend.
Fantastic. We talked with her when she was on. We talked about the Clockwork Orange House of Fun match with Raven when it was her against Jeff Jarrett. And she talked about how Jeff worked with her like a man and she got to go in there and have fun. And as a young woman coming out of the ECW revolution, she was like, I had a chance to show that we were more than just puppies. And coming through that time, that's pretty much what the women's wrestlers were. And she was like, they gave me a chance to work like a man when nobody else was doing that yet. So big shout out to Mickey James.
Hey, Will, real quick, when I did my top 10 women of all time, Mickey James is my number 3. Is she in your top 10 list?
I would put Mickey James in my top 10 of all time, I think. I would have to think about that list some, but I would say just off the cuff, I would put Mickey James in my top 10 women. Especially, with some of the things that have came to light. There's a couple of the women that were in my top 10 that have been moved out for the same reason there were some men moved off of my Mount Rushmore. So I think that allowed like a Mickey James to move into that spot for, not necessarily the greatest of all time, but the talk. So I think anybody in that top 10 has an argument of why they could be.
Amen. I agree.
Cool. All right, Allison, it's my favorite part of the show because I get to hand all responsibility off to you. It's time to head up to your corner for news, rumors, and headlines.
Ooh, fun.
Woo! So the first thing I have is that from all of us here at Botched, Bots, and Chair Shots. I can't even talk.
Share shots.
Chair Shots. We want to send our condolences to Kevin Nash because his son passed away today.
Yes.
So definitely, sending love and thoughts to his family.
Agreed. Big Kevin Nash fan, big sexy guy. Loved NWO. He'll be in the topic of conversation tonight more than once as we get through some of the topics. You never like it when it happens, especially if somebody has to lose a child. That's the biggest loss a parent can take.
Yeah, 26 years old, way too soon. Just think about this. Nash lost his best friend this year, and now has lost his son.
Wow. So sad.
Yeah. So.
Thoughts and prayers. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Big time.
To quote King Theoden from Lord of the Rings, fathers should never have to bury their sons.
Absolutely right.
The next thing on my list, Ace Steel has been released from AEW.
Who?
He bit Kenny Omega. He bit Kenny Omega. Was it Kenny Omega he bit?
Yeah.
He bit. No, I think he bit one of the Bucks. I think Omega's whole thing in the altercation was just saving a dog.
Yeah, he was trying to get Punk's dog out of the room so he wouldn't get hurt, apparently. I think... Sorry, go ahead, Bama.
I was going to say, you'd think in a scuffle like that, the dog would be the one biting people, not Ace.
Fair.
I have to give the Kai Tai show a shout out because he said it best, and this guy had one of the most eventful weeks in pro wrestling. He got brought in as a producer, helped go through and produce one of the biggest segments AEW's ever had on live TV, produced the pay-per-view, got in a fight, and got fired all within like 10 days. Like, that's a hell of a resume for 10 days with a company.
Unbelievable.
Like, you were there, you're like, I got in a fight with my EVP like my 8th day of work.
Mm-hmm.
He's an impact player, man.
That's what I'm saying. He came in and made moves, right?
Big time.
Yeah.
In the big scheme of things, though, I don't want to say this and sound ignorant to pro wrestling, but Ace Steel wasn't a needle mover for me as far as a name that I super recognized anyways. I knew he had some behind-the-scenes work and stuff, but he wasn't a big name in the sense that I was really like... I I wasn't like, oh shit, Ace Steel's at AEW now. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't ever that big of a deal for me anyways. So for him to be gone, I'm like, the man literally fought an EVP with his bare hands. It makes sense that he doesn't work there anymore.
I say his main mark came in Ring of Honor, right?
Yeah, he was a Ring of Honor guy, but that was it. Even then, like, that's what I mean. Like, he wasn't one of the. He's not a Punk or a Danielson when it comes to Ring of Honor guys, or a Samoa Joe or something. I was just like, but he's more of like a Colt Cabana. So it wasn't.
He was a jobber in WWE. He got his hair cut by Eugene, I think.
Oh, was it? Oh, it was that guy?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's where I know him from. I didn't know who he was.
I feel like in a lot of ways, Eugene is a golden piece of wrestling history that is underappreciated, because the guy, the actual man and the worker, is still a coach and a trainer to this day. And he was one of those guys who looped into a typecast gimmick for his role, and that was what he ended up with.
Yeah, but he's still making bank on the indies playing that character.
Oh, yes, he is.
Oh, yeah, he is.
Yeah, Dinsmore's an amazing wrestler. Like, he was a good wrestler. He was a good talker. I think it takes somebody good like that to be able to put over a character like he did. Like that, no pun intended. That was one of the most challenging characters that you could probably be put in and have to get over.
In every movie and in every sitcom, the people that play either special needs or whatever you would call it, on the spectrum, or good grief, the most probably mainstream example is like Joey from Friends. Matt LeBlanc is a genius. He's got a very high IQ, very clever, like photographic memory. But yet, so to go in there and play an airhead, same thing with Lisa Kudrow playing Phoebe. The people that can do these offhanded, kind of airbrained, slow characters, good grief. Daniel Day-Lewis in My Left Foot playing with a guy with cerebral palsy. You have to have a huge genius IQ to play characters like that. So props to Dinsmore for being able to get that character over and do it in a great way.
Yeah, Sean Penn, Tom Hanks, Forrest Gump. It just, dude, you should see me when I'm not on this podcast.
So before we move to the next headline, Allison, I have to know, do you even know who Eugene is?
No.
I was curious if you had been that deep into the wrestling lore yet. He was from a period. I'll send you some of his stuff. He's a great worker. He had a really unique character. I'm curious to see your take on the Eugene character.
Send her that clip where he worked with The Rock and Coachman.
Yes, that's a great one. Absolutely,
Yeah, that's a good moment.
Cool.
All right, you're up.
Yeah, didn't Hogan save him at WrestleMania?
Against the Muhammad Hassan and what's his name? Yeah.
Sorry, Allison, your turn.
Yeah, you're up.
Let her do her job.
WWE released a reduced premium live event schedule that does not include day one. However, January 11th is the 30th anniversary of Raw. Do you think that they're just going to do something big for that versus doing day one?
How many times have they done day one?
Once.
Okay.
Last January, yeah.
I say go ahead and do day two.
My only question is, did they have a partnership with Atlanta, and is that going to be in jeopardy at all because of this?
I don't know.
That I can't speak on. I don't know.
Yeah, no clue.
As far as the premium live event schedule, though, I am a big fan of this. Dave, you and I have both said this many times that they didn't need a lot of it. And Bobby, you and I have had this conversation about if some of these gimmick pay-per-views needed their own pay-per-views and if they should just go back to having a Hell in a Cell match. And I love the idea of them removing that pay-per-view and allowing that to be an open stipulation now, for somebody to build a big enough story to where, the Hell in a Cell can be the go home again. And it could be like the say all be all end all for a good built program. So I think losing it also gives us the stretch of time from Survivor Series through Rumble that's going to build some stories. Adding those extra, 4 weeks between each pay-per-view or whatever it is, I think can allow for bigger stories to be built and make the pay-per-views mean more.
Yeah, I think it makes those gimmick matches mean more too. Like, I wouldn't take away Royal Rumble because that Royal Rumble started like that.
No,
But
it's one of the big four. There's
the big
no
four are
way
gonna
they'll
move.
take those away.
No.
Yeah.
But what I would do, I would challenge them on, is having a men's and a women's Royal Rumble on the same show. It takes away from one of them. Whichever one is the end, I feel like it takes away because you already see the spots in the beginning. Like Kofi's not going to touch the ground for whatever reason. Naomi's not going to touch the ground for whatever reason. Like it's like shadowing the same characters, same spots, just go on and on. So I think they've got to figure out a way to get the women's double matches to be more special, or the men's double matches to be more special. And I think taking them off a pay-per-view that's titled that is the way to do it. But I don't know what you would do with the women's Royal Rumble.
Let me fantasy book this for you, and let me ask you guys a question then. What if they took the women's Royal Rumble, because on this suggested premium live event schedule, they have Evolution, and to assume they stick with an all women's pay-per-view late next year, could they put the women's Rumble there and just build from November to April for WrestleMania instead, and put the women's Royal Rumble on an all women's pay-per-view?
That's the question: is how far ahead of it at WrestleMania is it? I wouldn't do it too much farther than like December.
Yeah, but that's the kind of the idea. They could maybe do it. If they were doing Evolution in December and the Rumble in January, then there's not a big difference in 2 or 3 episodes of Raw.
Or they could do what BC Hunter said to do the other night on Wrestling with the Truth, is what if the Royal Rumble and maybe SummerSlam could also, like WrestleMania, be 2 nights? Let the women main event one night and let the men main event the next night.
I think Rumble could be big enough to do that. SummerSlam, to me,
biggest party of the summer. Could you do 2 nights?
I didn't want to do 2 nights in LP Field, Nissan Stadium. Absolutely not.
If you'd had 2 nights, Seth could have wrestled.
What if you do Fair enough. Royal Rumble? What if you do the Royal Rumble for the ladies or the men, whichever one, a couple months before SummerSlam, and SummerSlam is their WrestleMania? Like that's where they get their guaranteed shot at the main event of SummerSlam.
Well, you got to keep in mind they didn't do the WrestleMania stipulation in the Rumble until '94 anyway, so it had been around for 6 years before Yokozuna won it for the first time. Look at me being a nerd. He was the first dude to cash in the Rumble win for the WrestleMania main event.
Who was the first guy to win the belt in the Royal Rumble?
'92, Ric Flair.
Nice. So here's my part of it. You guys say all ladies pay-per-view. What if we said an all men's pay-per-view? What kind of flack would kind of flack?
We had that for 20 years.
Yeah, I was about to say, do you not remember 1983 to 1997, Bobby? Like,
shut up, Bobby. No, here's my thing about an all women's pay-per-view. As the roster stands right now, with so many of the women out or injured or whatever, like, are they even going to have enough women to have an all women's pay-per-view?
This year, probably not. By this time next year, yes.
But I think it opens them up, like what they did this year with that Impact partnership, and actually having Mickie James come in. Like they could, if this Japan partnership comes in, I don't know the Japanese people very well, but them coming in, at least they've got a little bit more of a playground to play in and bring people over.
Well, this would open up the partnership to Stardom as well with the IWGP.
Let me ask y'all this question, because Apron and I had this conversation when we did the Book the Calendar show about a year ago. He wanted Evolution on the calendar. I didn't. And my reasoning was this. And he made a very valid argument as well. So that's why I want to hear what you guys have to say. His argument was because the women have for so long only had one match on a pay-per-view or sometimes no matches on a pay-per-view, to give them their own pay-per-view is kind of a, thank you for everything you do all year. This is a big reward. You get the whole show. I said, if we're truly going for equality and everybody battling for the same time and to be I think Becky Lynch changed the game, because when she became the number one star in the company and arguably is still the number one star in the company when she's there, a lot of people retweet her stuff more than they retweet Roman Reigns. So I would say that if that's the case, then can't you just say, look, if the women have better traction with their story, if the Becky and Bianca rivalry is more must see than whatever Brock and Roman are doing, why can't Becky and Bianca be the main event of that pay-per-view? Who says it has to be the tribal chief? I get he holds the main prize in the business, but if we're truly going for equality, Becky, Bianca, you told a better story. You don't need your own pay-per-view. You get the main event. We'll put Roman in the opening match. He can squash the guy and say, I'm out of here. Have a good show, guys.
I'm for that, but I think that the society that we live in is going to find a fault in it and complain about it, because if their favorite isn't the main event, then there's a problem. And I think that's where our society is in a whole. That's a whole other subject. So I don't think we would be able to appease anyone. I don't think there's a way to appease all the people, like, at all the time. And I think I don't know. With the all-female pay-per-view, I really like to look at the numbers. Now that we've seen Evolution, the first one's out. The shines off of it or whatever. I'm sure Will's got more Southern sayings that you could help me with that. What is that next women's pay-per-view going to look like? And is it going to draw the way that Evolution drew?
Good point. Allison, what do you think?
With the women that, if the women that are available right now, like, I don't think it would do well at all, to be honest. Without Charlotte, without Becky, like
Sasha, Naomi.
No Sasha, no Naomi. Like, Bianca and Bayley can't hold it up themselves. And to be fair, the rest of the women's roster isn't quite where it should be. I mean, we should have more Alexa Bliss on TV, but we don't. Whatever it is that she's doing or whatever,
I think they're repackaging her. Asuka too.
Yeah, but it's just like, like, I love Bianca and I love Bayley, but like, it's getting tired, like, already. Even like, are we just gonna have Bianca and Bayley like going back and forth until Charlotte decides she wants to come back?
Yeah, I feel like they're trying to save everybody's return for the Royal Rumble, and I think that's gonna kill. Like, it's gonna hurt Cody's return at the Rumble if everybody else returns at the Rumble.
I have a feeling we're gonna see Becky at Survivor Series because they need two teams to go into those cages.
They said that she may be back by before the end of the year.
I see a safe return by Rumble, honestly. Would be my viable bet would be that she rests until Rumble and then comes back and wins.
Allison, can you turn that doll around that's staring at me? I'm kind of spooked.
It's definitely interesting, because if we are going to get Becky versus Ronda, then either Becky's going to have to win the championship or Becky's going to have to either win the Rumble or win the Chamber to get her shot at her. So it'll be interesting to see how they do that. Will, what do you think? I mean, do you want an all-women's pay-per-view, or do you kind of agree with me that women and men, who cares? Better story gets the main event.
I kind of agree with both of you in a way. The best part about WWE is they've got the Peacock deal, so they don't have to worry about pay-per-view buys. They could put a Raw on a special on Sunday night and call it a pay-per-view and just be like, there you go, guys. And we can't do anything about it because of the nature of the deal. So I feel like that's really distracting. That doll is extra creepy. But I feel like given the right...
I was talking about Seth Rollins.
Seth Rollins? Leave Seth alone.
I
feel like...
I can't even see him.
He's sitting on top of her IC belt.
I know, but I can't see his face, so I'm not creeped out by that. Now I'm creeped out.
It wasn't just me, right?
I feel like given the right storylines, I think I have more Becky Biancas left in me than I would Roman and Brock. You know what I mean? I think they've got more of a story to tell, adding Charlotte when she comes back, adding Bayley. You've got Asuka versus Io that we haven't got yet. There's a lot of stories to tell in the women's division, so I think they could build a hell of a card for an all-women's pay-per-view if they did it right and booked it and got everybody back and healthy and kept them healthy all the way through next fall.
It'll be interesting to see, especially with whether or not Sasha and Naomi come back, because if they say, no, we're happy, we're not coming back, we're about to be flooded with about 5 or 6 girls from NXT, namely Toxic Attraction and Roxanne.
Agreed.
So,
Miss Eagle, what you got next on your list?
The next thing I have is Adam Page's concussion from Mox on Tuesday.
It's amazing the other bumps that he took in that match. That was the bump that did him in.
It's crazy that it wasn't from the lariat either. He just landed bad.
It was he oversold and he landed wrong on the oversell, which is one of the problems when people do that kind of stuff. Ricochet has done it a few times where he's knocked himself for a loop because he oversells and then he ends up hurt. And
correct me if I'm wrong, Will. Shawn Michaels got most of his concussions by overselling.
He did. He also, that's one of the biggest reasons he broke his back as well, was because he tried to oversell a bump onto the casket and he overshot the throw. So a lot of these guys, when they oversell or don't do things by the books, is where we see some of these injuries come from. And I think Adam Page is the most recent example of that happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you watch Michaels, like when he would do like a backdrop, like somebody flip him, you would see him launch off their shoulders like every time. Like that's
10 feet in the air every time.
Yeah.
Every time. Yeah. Isn't it ironic that the thing that gave Adam Page a concussion, who does the buckshot lariat, was a lariat?
Marie says she's saying that he was knocked out by the lariat. He couldn't do the full rotation.
It did
really?
Shot. Like it did shot, but
I
heard Moxley got his shoulder and he landed off on his neck.
If it wouldn't surprise me. Either way, I'm sorry. I hope he's better. I love, Hangman's great. But my point is, the way it looked on the replay, and I even put it on my TikTok, when he landed, it looked like he landed on this part of his body, like in that upper neck area. So that's what I thought did it. I thought he was trying to over-rotate and oversell and just landed wrong on his neck and head, and that's what I thought the concussion came from. The lariat looked like a Moxley lariat. When he hits you, it looks like, Moxley.
Mox is one of the few that he'll throw a JBL lariat and he'll knock you the crap out.
Yeah, he's got a few guys on his bucket list that have came through and said Moxley took my head off. That's not something people know Moxley's going to hit them in the ring.
But yeah, please get better soon, Hangman. We need you back in the ring, buddy.
AEW needs you fiercely in the ring.
Yes.
My next one is Hogan deletes infamous tweet from 11 years ago. Good night, Hulkamaniacs and Jabroni Marks.
I'm a Jabroni Mark. I don't care.
I don't remember that tweet.
He's Hulk Hogan. I don't care.
I'll pull up. I shall pull up the whole tweet.
I'm just kidding. I forgot this tweet existed. I'm just playing.
I don't feel like when people use the term mark and it's derogatory, I feel like the IWC has romanticized it so much that people want to be called marks by wrestlers now. So I don't feel like it carries any of the weight. I even jokingly call myself a mark it's my catchphrase for myself. You know what I mean? Yep. Like, I don't feel like it's a derogatory term anymore.
Yeah. The full tweet was, good night, Hulkamaniacs and Jabroni Marks. Without a life that don't know it, when you work and work yourself into a shoot. Mark.
So what year was it 11 years ago?
2011.
11. So Hogan was just finishing up a nasty divorce, getting sued, his kid's in jail.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably in a bad place.
What's the date stamp on it, Allison? What month, what day does it say?
It was October 16th, 2011.
Okay.
Well, I mean, he was going through some stuff, and when you take the professional business side out of it, I say a lot that I'm not a Hogan person, but that means professionally speaking, I never wish ill on anybody in their personal life. You know what I mean? I hate it when it comes to stuff like that. So if he was going through something, then that's awful. I don't want that to be the case. But I think it's hilarious when wrestlers get mad enough they start calling us marks, because that means we got under their skin a little bit. And these guys are supposed to be ruthless, right?
Yeah, that's Terry Bollea hacking Hulk Hogan's Twitter.
There you go. There you go.
My last thing here is Halloween Havoc on Saturday. Is anybody excited? Are y'all excited? We can go through the card just a little bit if y'all want. We don't have to.
Dave, you're leading a space tomorrow for check your temperature for this, man. Go ahead and plug that space real quick. I'll have you plug the rest of your stuff, but go ahead and tell us what you're doing with that, because that's part of your thing anyways. So
Yeah, I've tried to do 1 or 2 spaces a month, mainly if it's a smaller show that I don't want to dedicate an episode to, that I'll do a space for it. This Halloween Havoc is also the first Halloween Havoc they're doing as a premium live event, so they're really trying to make a big deal out of it. I believe right now we have 6 matches on the card, and so it's going to be pretty good. Again, we're going to do a space for it tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hopefully, Will, you'll be able to join me for that. Also, Bob from Back to the Ring will be with there.
nice.
He actually requested to come on because he, especially with Dragunov and JD McDonough, he's a big fan of NXT UK. So all the influence that the NXT UK superstars have on this card, he wanted to add some stuff behind the scenes that he knows that he thought the audience would like to hear about it. But yeah, I'm very intrigued because this is also probably going to be the last hurrah for a lot of people on this card. And I'm very interested to see who Triple H feels coming out of this is ready to come up and get ready for Survivor Series and get ready to have a story building into the Rumble. So it'll be interesting to see. I think we could probably all name 1 or 2 each that we think is going to come up. But again, we're not in the chair. My initials aren't Triple H. So I'm interested to see who he thinks is ready to come up.
I'm hoping they leave Breaker down there and let him keep working down there under Sean and keep learning. He's great, but I'd hate to see him go up to the main roster too early.
Well, Bobby, I don't know if you're going to be on the space tomorrow or not, but JD or Ilya, who would you put the belt on then?
I'd keep it on Breaker.
Just keep it on him?
Yep.
Okay.
I like JD. He's a Finn Balor guy. Balor pretty much brought him up through Ireland. What was his name before he came over?
It was Jordan Devlin.
Yeah, there you go. And
Irish Ace.
Yeah, the Irish Ace. There you go. I'm terrible with names. I have as bad of a memory.
Well, that's what the JD stands for. Jordan Devlin McDonough.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. They were playing off of it. I think both those guys are just crazy workers. Dragunov's run with Gunther were phenomenal matches. One of my match of the year candidates until the FTR match. FTR Briscoes. And then looking at it, I'm hyped for Shotzi to be hosting. That's like the perfect place for her, I feel, is hosting a Halloween Havoc. So I think overall, and then putting in a PLE spot on Saturday, I think it has a mix to be a quality show if done right. And I think they've got enough talent on the card to fill 3 hours. So I don't think it'll be a problem.
I hope they use the old WCW set.
Yeah?
Yeah, make it feel like the old WWF sets were amazing back in the day, like Armageddon and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I hope they really put in that that WCW feel of Halloween Havoc.
I liked the In Your House vibes when they went with the old In Your House thing. So maybe there's hope.
Yeah, everything doesn't have to be on the screen.
Hey, thanks for the first time chat from Bammer Chatter. Big shout out to Dave, big fan, big friend of the show.
Yeah, I couldn't retain the old Twitch because for all the different reasons. So I had to redo it. So you got my first time I commented. So
that's awesome. Well, did you say that was the last one on your list, Al?
Yes.
Perfect. Well, gentlemen, I don't get to say this very often, but I'm glad. We're going to move on to the meat and potatoes of the conversation. Dave, you came on in season 1 with us. We did a history of the strap, the series where we kind of look at a specific title throughout wrestling history, and we kind of deep dive into that specific time period for that belt. In true Botched Bots and Chair Shots fashion, we did it backwards. We did 01 to 2014. Yep. Today, we're doing the Big Gold Belt Volume 2, and we're doing about 1994, roughly, about the time Flair got it all the way through WCW's buyout and Booker T winning the title for the last time. So I'm going to ask you guys right off the start, any 3 of you, if you want to jump in, what are your first thoughts when you think of when I say WCW and the Big Gold Belt? I asked you the same thing to start it last time. I'm going to start it right now. What do you think about the Big Gold Belt during that period of wrestling?
You're talking about the early 90s. Flair coming in with that Big Gold Belt was, it's huge because it jumped from the NWA to WCW. It was representing a whole new company with the same champion. And then Flair, not too long after that, jumped to WWF, and the big gold belt went with him. So when you talk about the history of the big gold belt, you got to talk about its short WWF run where WCW was suing WWF for putting it on their TV, to where Flair actually had to carry one of the WWF tag team championships out to the ring. And that's what they would blur out. Guys like Luger and Sting, Vader, Ron Simmons, during that time period when Flair wasn't there, they didn't get to hold the big gold belt. Like, they had this really bad looking WCW belt.
It kind of looked like one of the tag team titles.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was one of those things that I don't think that like any of them during that time period really get a lot of respect from WCW fans, because they were the champ, but they weren't holding the championship belt that everybody was so familiar with.
I say the belt they were holding, did they model that after the pre-Winged Eagle WWF belt?
Yes, that was more the original World Championship belt for WCW looked more like Hogan's world title in WrestleMania 3-ish type of days. You know what I mean? Right. That old one before the Winged Eagle. Yes, sir. That's what it looked like.
Right.
Yep.
That was the one Ron Simmons held in '86 when he won the title. Was that World Championship Wrestling heavyweight title, not the big gold belt?
Right. Yeah, same. When I first started watching wrestling in 1995, that's the first belt I saw, and that was a big iconic thing. That, man, yeah, that's a prize. That's something you're willing to put your body on the line to be able to hold that thing, and no telling how much it weighed and just how beautiful the design was. You could tell somebody took a lot of time on that thing and made it as beautiful as it is. So, yeah, it captivated me. I wanted my favorites to get a shot at it, and I wanted my favorites to win it. So, yeah, hands down, one of the reasons I became a wrestling fan is the fact of, man, that's a beautiful prize to be won.
Yeah, and I'm not going to age myself, but I remember watching old videos from '86. Not that I was actually watching as a kid. I remember when Flair debuted that thing, like when he came out on TV that first time, because everybody had always talked about, the classic 10 pounds as the $1,000 belt. Flair came on TV. He's like, yeah, this is a $30,000 belt, custom rubies, diamonds, blah, blah, blah. And it was a true prize. Like, when Rhodes won it, it didn't even look like it belonged on Rhodes. Like, Ronnie Garvin won it. It didn't look like it belonged on them. Like, that was Ric Flair's belt. It was like when the $1 Million Man, and that belt was really ugly, brought that championship out. Whenever anybody else wore it, it just didn't look right. And that's how I think those first 20 years with Flair and that belt from '86 to on, it just didn't look right when somebody else was wearing it.
It's like somebody else wearing the spinner belt except John Cena.
Agreed. Yep. It debuted, was it at Starrcade that year, Bobby, in '86?
No, it was during the summer.
Bash at the Beach?
It was right at the beginning of the Great American Bash, because he debuted it. I'm looking at my walls trying to think of dates. I think he debuted it in the beginning of the summer, and Dusty won it 2 months later in July, and then lost it 14 days later in August. And I promise you, I'm actually not even looking at my screen. I'm looking in my head right now at these dates. So, yeah, the Great American Bash. It was the Great American Bash that year. Ric Flair wrestled on every single Great American Bash and defended the title every single night of that event. So he was and that was near the end when he lost to Dusty.
We keep in mind the original Great American Bash, those first few years as well, they were massive summer tours. So it wasn't just one pay-per-view. They would do a months-long set of shows, and they would run shows, and then they would do the big go-home pay-per-view show on a Sunday night to end the tour. So you would see 4 or 5 different versions of the Great American Bash card throughout the tour, building up to the big one at the end of it. That would be the pay-per-view. I thought that was a cool idea, and house shows is something you don't see a lot of these days anyways.
Yeah, 85 and 86, the Great American Bashes were every night for the entire summer. It was a 90-day thing. Dusty had gotten stuff where it was also a country music festival too. So you'd watch the Bash, you'd see, I think David Allan Coe was a big singer part of it. Flair, I remember in '86, he wrestled everybody. He wrestled, Dusty, he wrestled Nikita, he wrestled Morton, everybody and anybody that was in the wrestling business, he wrestled in the NWA at those house shows. And that was the same year that Magnum and Nikita were doing the Best of 7 series. And before internet, I'm watching a Best of 7, And I'm thinking, oh my God, Nikita just took the lead. But you go to TV and once you start reading the magazines, they did this best of 7 series, like 30 matches, right. But you only pay attention to what the TV had.
I agree with Marie. If I could pick any belt to have a replica of, it's the big gold belt. Not even close.
I was going to give her a shout out for Ric Flair. I know he's at the top of her GOAT list. That was the first thing she said was in WCW, it goes straight to the big gold belt and Ric Flair every time. Looking at some of the guys who held this belt the most. So we've already touched on Flair. He held the big gold belt in WCW 8 times. Historic run, always the best. If you look at some of the runs he did, he got it vacated and then he went through. Then he lost it at Bash at the Beach in 1994 to a newcomer to WCW, relatively fresh at least, in a Hulk Hogan. This was his first title run, 469 days. Hogan's first 2 title runs equated to over, I think it was close to 900 days, if I remember right, on his first 2 title runs. So throw in your last 2 cents on Flair, because we're about to hop into Bobby's dream show.
Ric Flair is I know a lot of people say Sting's the face of WCW. I think it's Ric Flair. Just because Sting didn't jump to anywhere else until the place went under. When I think WCW, when I think the NWA, I think Ric Flair. Like, he is the quintessential bad guy, world heavyweight champion, and was a bad guy for so long that it took another bad guy with Terry Funk to turn him into a face. And I know the Horsemen had fans, but Ric Flair and those guys were the Horsemen, and they ran the place.
So I think a lot of it's when you start watching it. When I hear NWA, I think Ric Flair. When I hear WCW, I think Sting. Not only because of the longevity, and like you said, not only did he not jump, but Flair had already become in as a bona fide megastar. Sting was made a star within WCW. So basically, you could say he rose up as the homegrown talent and put it on his shoulders and said, "This is my company." Whereas Flair came in and gave him the rub to be able to do that. But 100%, I agree with you. Ric Flair. He's not my favorite of all time. I wouldn't even put him as the greatest of all time, but you can't argue. If you put him in the greatest of all time, I'm not going to debate with you in terms of on the mic, in-ring work, of course, being a 16-time world champion, when in fact he's actually held like 24 titles across different promotions, but we're not going to get into that. That'll make people's heads hurt. But yeah, arguably the creator of the greatest faction of all time, which broke ground for every faction that ever came after them. Any great faction has looked at the 4 Horsemen and said, what did they do right that we should do within our group? And so, yeah, for real, for Ric Flair, bona fide star. I just wish the only thing is I wish when Sean said, "I'm sorry, I love you," that was it. That's the only thing I wish.
Yeah. Allison, let me ask you a question. Okay, I say this a lot, and I mean it lovingly. You've been watching wrestling the least amount of time. You did, however, have a chance to see Ric Flair's final match this past July in Nashville. Having seen some of the old Flair stuff in the NWA when I gave you your wrestling crash course versus what we saw in 2022, what are your opinions on Ric Flair as a young wrestling fan?
I mean, if you take out Ric Flair the person from the equation.
Problem is that is Ric Flair the person.
Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah, no. I get it.
He's out of range terrible things that we know now.
Yeah.
I mean, I really like watching old Ric Flair matches. To me, and y'all can hate on this all you want, but to me, Seth Rollins reminds me a lot of Ric Flair. Bobby, let me tell you why. Like, from the things that I've seen and the different stuff that I've watched, like, Flair was that guy that was okay with not always having to win. You know what I mean? And that's kind of the role that Seth plays. Seth is the most losingest wrestler of all of WWE. He's lost more matches, I think they said, than all of the other wrestlers combined this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, I find them to be very similar. I I don't know. I like Flair as a wrestler. As a person, he's kind of trash. Seeing his last match was really cool. Will and I did see him walking around in person, like beforehand at the convention, and like he was looking rough.
Yeah, he was. He was.
Dude's 70 years old.
Been out
Yes.
the night before, but like
That's Ric Flair.
Yeah.
Yeah, for what
He loves his kamikazes.
for what he's done for wrestling, like you can't take that away. Like with all the shitty shit that he's done, like you can't. We wouldn't have wrestling as it is without Ric Flair.
Those are big words. Those are real big words.
I'm pretty cold-hearted, but when I was married, when Flair retired that first time after the Shawn match, and the next night on Raw when they did that retirement ceremony, my wife came in the room and I'm like legit like crying. And she's like, "What happened? Did he die? Did he die?" I was like,
I know.
I was like, "No, he's retiring." She's like, "What the fuck?" And what the heck? And smack me on the back of the head.
Bobby, you can say the F word. I've got the Eve on this for
She said the F word.
Oh,
dude, dude, no lie. When Triple H yelled out all the members of the Horsemen and that music hit, I had full chills all over the place. And funny enough, Allison makes a really good point because, again, this may not be updated, but I believe from 2019 to 2021, it may have changed since then. But guess who's lost more matches in the WWE in those 3 years?
Seth Rollins.
Nope.
Who?
Charlotte Flair.
Really?
Like father, like daughter. She loses and gets over.
See, this is the big thing about the Rollins thing, and I knew this because I jumped in and did an article a few weeks ago. Shout out to the Botched and Chair Shots blog. Is Seth Rollins the Babe Ruth of professional baseball? And in that argument, I explained because Babe Ruth hit a home run for every 2 strikeouts, he had a home run. And that's a ridiculous statistic in a professional baseball player. And I used that as an analogy for Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins can take a ton of L's and still be over to the point that he doesn't have to win all the time. He
just needs 1 home run a quarter.
Well, he's
one
also
home run a quarter. Yeah,
500 on his winning averages. And I think it was something ridiculous like 1,500 matches won, 1,556 lost. Like that's how close he is to perfect split. But the interesting fact about Seth is if you take all of those title reigns with all of those losses, he's held a title more than 50% of the man's career, and he hadn't held a title since like 2018 in WWE.
And then we called the last 2 years like his best work.
Yeah, they're without a belt at all. He's one of the guys that we say is bigger than the title. Seth Rollins is 100. He's a Becky Lynch. That's
why I married her.
Yeah, he's almost like a Kenny Omega in the AEW side, like somebody who's bigger than a title. I know you're not a Kenny O fan, Allison. Right. I'll get you over before Wrestle Kingdom. Okay, I'll have you watch like Kenny Omega from like 2014, and you'll be like, holy shit, this guy can work.
If you have to go back and watch people in New Japan to appreciate them now, then are they even that good?
You sound like Matt Ritter when you say that. That is exactly verbatim some shit Ritter has said to me.
Kenny Omega can work, but can he sell?
Yeah, what match should I watch of Kenny Omega's to really like become a fan? Is it him against the blow up doll or him against the kid? which or the Invisible Man? Like which one's gonna really get me hooked?
Oh my gosh!
The funny thing is Ethan Page is on a short list for me of wrestlers I won't cover because I watched him wrestle himself in a match once and I was like, nope, never gonna do this. And when he kicked the Italian spinny pizza Luigi guy, Luigi, when he kicked Luigi, I was like, hey. Maybe the Adam Page is taking wrestling a little bit more seriously. So I'm gonna just say it, guys. We have to talk about Hogan. He won the first title, Bash at the Beach, 1994. You can't talk about the big gold belt in WCW without talking about Hogan. Let's talk about some of the high points of this because he carried the belt for well over a year and then dropped it to the Giant. During that title reign, though, it was like massive. Like he had lots of big matches and everything. So what about Hogan's first title reign comes to mind in that 95 range? 94, 95.
Yeah, this was Hogan coming back to wrestling. He'd been gone for like a year and a half, doing a really bad TV show. Then he comes back to WCW, and he lights the world on fire again. His song was his All American song on WCW. I hated it. It was terrible. He lost a lot of weight. Obviously, this is after the steroid trial in WWF. He was a different Hogan, and to me, this was the first time I felt like Terry Bollea was playing Hulk Hogan instead of actually being Hulk Hogan, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the reign actually wasn't that impressive to me. Like, he had a huge feud with the Dungeon of Doom that just felt so fake. Like it felt 1980s WWF fake. Like, and WCW, that's not what WCW was about at that point in time. Like, they were the real wrestling federation, and WWF was the fake one. So he brought that sports entertainment to WCW, and and he started bringing over the rejects. Like, you started having Earthquake come over. You started having Boss Man come over, and all these guys, Beefcake obviously. But it was the shot in the arm that WCW needed to get them to that next level, because Ric Flair at this day and age is, I would say, just as popular as Hulk Hogan. Like, a lot of people know who Flair is now because of these rappers and all this other stuff that they're doing. But back then, yes, Ric Flair was big to wrestling fans.
He wasn't Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, he wasn't worldwide. This time, Hulk Hogan came in and made WCW worldwide.
Yeah, this was the first Hogan I ever saw. Like I said, started watching 1995 was the first time I ever saw it. We turned it in on a episode of Nitro. This lean, mean, 275-pound, red and yellow wearing guy, and came down with that big gold belt over his shoulder. And so that was first Hulk Hogan I ever saw. And it was a larger than life is an understatement when it comes to Hulk Hogan. He just has this presence, and it's amazing. The one thing I was talking to, I forgot who it was. I think it was Apron. I was on his show. We were doing Bash at the Beach 1995. And we were talking about the Hogan versus Vader match. And I said, it's amazing to me how Hulk Hogan literally only has 4 legit moves. Everything else is in between the moves, but he doesn't need to do anything else, because with facial expressions and taking the beating from the other guy, he just draws you into the story of the match. And it's something that, over time, I think a lot of people started understanding that that's one of the reasons why he's up in that GOAT list on most people's Mount Rushmore, is the way he would make you cheer for him, even at sometimes when you didn't want to, even when you legitimately wanted the other guy to possibly get the win here. By the end of the match, you were for Hulk Hogan, because he just had that ability to make you want to watch him win that match. And so it's just such an underappreciated art that he had, and appreciated talent he had, more than the 24-inch pythons and more than the brother and all the other stuff. Once he got in the ring, the dude knew how to tell a story. And that's one thing I don't appreciate a lot about Hulk Hogan, but that's one thing I absolutely appreciate about Hulk Hogan. Is the greatest of all time, in my opinion, are the best storytellers.
Yeah, and he can sell. Like, he's really underrated on selling. Like, if you watch a Hogan match, even like before that in the 80s, he sold most of the match. Like, he was, and he was calling the match.
Yeah.
Like the whole dude.
Hit me again.
Yeah, he's one of the faces that called matches and got the other guys. Like, who would have King Kong Bundy as a main eventer, Big John Studd as a main eventer? Like, never would have happened without Hulk Hogan. The Earthquake never would have happened. So Hogan knows how to put guys over, and he knows how to make money. And you know what? If you're that good, I don't care about the political stuff you do backstage or what's happening in your personal life. I'm looking at Hulk Hogan, the character, and that guy was huge everywhere he went.
Ray Lewis is still in the NFL Hall of Fame. O.J. Simpson is in the NFL Hall of Fame.
Doesn't have a Heisman anymore, though.
This is well played, sir. Well played.
Did they ever give Reggie Bush his back?
They did not. They vacated that from the records.
Okay.
So we're gonna look that title reign for Hogan, as the red and yellow Hogan, was historic. One of his longer ones. He's one of the longest reigning WWE, WWF champions as well. When he lost the belt, he lost it to the Giant, and then there was this whole issue with a disqualification, and then it ended up to a vacancy. Then what happened in 95 was World War III, which was the first time it was 3 big rings, the whole 60-man. Exactly. We get to talk about him. Mr. Randy Savage, he and I both share the same birthday, 11/15. What were your guys' opinions on Randy Savage as a world champion?
Loved it. You talk about a guy that, I'll quote Bobby the Brain Heenan, Savage never stops. That is the epitome of him in the ring. From the moment that bell rings, he is always moving. If you knock him down, he writhes in pain. When he gets back up, he charges at you. You knock him down again, he scrambles for a rope. You never see him lay still ever in a match. He's always moving. And that's what I love. That's what I love about it. He's so tenacious. I mean, arguably, I think Will, you said at one time his finisher is the greatest finisher of all time. I mean, I think that flying elbow is a thing of beauty. When he won that match and showed up the next night on Nitro wearing that belt with taped up ribs and half his body head to toe in traction, but he still had that he still had that belt over his shoulder. I'm like, I don't care how hurt you are, man. You deserve every single ounce of this right now. And one of the first Nitros I can remember as a kid is when he defended it against Lex Luger on a Nitro. Lex Luger didn't have an ounce of injury on him, and Savage was half dead. And Savage still took him for 20 minutes. It was an amazing, amazing spectacle to watch Macho Man as a world champion. In my opinion, if he ain't at least in your top 20, go watch some more matches because Macho Man's amazing.
I totally agree. I'd say top 15 with Savage at least. He's one of those guys. Yeah, didn't we? I think Will, a couple of weeks ago we were talking about Mount Rushmore's, how nobody ever put Savage on that Mount Rushmore.
I'm a Savage guy. He's like number 5 or 6 on my list. And it's funny that we just talked about this, how he's one of the greatest talkers of all time, one of the greatest workers of all time. You know, everything about him, the way he presented himself as a champion, he could always recreate himself with the king gimmick and then, you know, the cowboy hat, Bobby, the same stuff we were talking about a few weeks ago. But nobody ever says he's the greatest of all time. And I always
Do you think it's the same thing as Brett and Sean? They're just workers and everybody remembers them as workers and not as larger than life characters?
I think all of them get overshadowed by somebody. Like Savage definitely overshadowed by Hogan. You know, you talk about you know, the Sting versus Flair. People put Flair on that Mount Rushmore, but not Sting. So I think Sting gets overshadowed by Flair. So I think, you know, Piper would get overshadowed by Hogan at the same time. So, you know, I think it's who you're working with. That's why it's so unique when people put The Rock and Austin on their Mount Rushmores, because the guys worked at the same time against each other. And there wasn't a true number one, number 2 spot. So, you know, that's where I think Savage kind of drops off of it. But like Savage, you got to remember, he gets basically let go from WWE. He doesn't re-sign a contract, disappears off Raw. Vince McMahon is so hurt by it. He actually says Randy Savage best of luck on Monday Night Raw. Like he said, hey, we couldn't sign Savage. Best of luck to him. He came over with a chip on his shoulder to prove that he wasn't too old, that he could still do this. And Savage WCW run, you know, for those 5 or 6 years were some of the best of his career.
Yes.
He wasn't medically cleared for a while, right? The WWE doctors wouldn't give him a medical clearance, and that was one of the reasons why Vince wouldn't let him back in the ring, if I remember right.
Right, and then they had the resurgence of the new generation era. So Vince is like, "I'm going young. You're too old, dude."
Yeah.
And he's on like 40. Like, and now if you look at the WWE roster, half the guys there are over 40.
Yep.
Allison, what do you think about Macho Man?
I love him.
You do?
He's one of my favorites, and it's not just because I love Slim Jims.
Best commercials ever.
Yes.
Ever. Yeah.
And he's still on the boxes. You still see him on some of these.
And they now have like a special like Savage flavor.
But isn't it fun colors that they use?
It's purple and yellow.
No, red and yellow.
No, it's purple.
The Savage one is purple and yellow.
Purple.
Okay. I'll give her that.
Are y'all talking about Slim Jims?
Yeah.
Yep.
I think I just said in the chat that Sting is overrated to Ravage Dragon. because I said it on your
Right.
we did it on the episode the other day.
And then Kyle just retyped it again and said Sting is overrated. We all agree he's had.
No, that's Will. That's Will.
Oh, that's you.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm on the Smack Draw, the Twitch.
Oh,
tonight,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, we all agree he had a very romanticized body of work, but again, the reason he's held in such high esteem is because of what he did for WCW, especially against the up and coming Attitude Era WWF. So,
Let me ask you guys a question. Randy Savage had the belt. It vacated. He got it. Flair got it back, forth, back to the Giant. There was a lot of changing hands. These stories were bouncing around, Starcade, stuff like that. When we look at WCW as a wrestling company, we see territories. When you think WCW, though, and you connect it with a city, what city do you think of with WCW?
Atlanta, Georgia.
Do you always go to Atlanta, Georgia?
Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah, I'd say Atlanta #1, Flair era Charlotte,
Yeah.
but WCW, yeah, Atlanta.
You always
Tampa a little bit. Some of their pay-per-views were in Tampa.
Yeah, but that's why they did Hogan Goldberg in Atlanta.
Right.
The reason why I ask is because with the WCW absorbing the NWA and everything that happened, historically, you look at Georgia Championship Wrestling, you look at Mid-South, Memphis, you look at Florida Championship Wrestling, all of these southern territories. Do you think that Turner and company tried to use as much of that influence coming out of the territories with the way they booked a lot of these pay-per-views and stuff? Because with the exception of your random Sturgis or your Havocs out in Las Vegas or outside of Reno and stuff, you see a lot of stuff booked in the American Southeast. Do you think this is all a marketing ploy to ride on the coattails of the NWA because they had such a strong following in those territories?
I think it was also, sorry, Bobby. I think it was also a biggest pushback to the fact of what Vince had just done to the territories. And if WCW is the up and coming, we're going to take it to them, or we're going to go on Nitro the same time as Raw is, and we're going to then branch out and do all these things. I think that's basically saying, hey, you can keep your kingdom up in New York. What you did to us isn't going to fly. We're going to rally and do everything we can to keep the South alive, and we'll take it right back at you.
Yeah, and I think when the Hogan era came in, I think that's when they really started branching out to, past these southern territories. Like, they had, events in Michigan and South Dakota, and all these, different places. Florida's always Florida, New York are big mainstays for pro wrestling. Like, it's the big shows, it's got big money at both of those. You've got the loyal crowds in the southern areas, Alabama, Georgia, the Carolinas, and Virginia. Like, they're always going to draw. And if you're Southern wrestling, and I think that's one of the things, though, when Hogan came in, you'll notice the Virginia pay-per-views started to go away, the North Carolina ones, because those were the hardcore wrestling fans that, hey, you know what, WCW and WWF are fake, and now I'm watching all these WWF guys on my WCW. And I think, I know the ratings were huge, but I think that ratings was new people watching it, along with the WWF fans that were watching. I think the NWA WCW fans, I think they really started dropping off during the 95, 96 period.
Allison, you got to see Jim Crockett Promotions once again at the Ric Flair thing. And that was in Municipal Auditorium in Nashville. That was kind of a wrestling hub, and a lot of times it held a lot of Starcades in Nashville through that building. You had a chance to see JCP put on the last match in a very 1980s studio set. You also had a chance to see AEW Dynamite put on one of the biggest produced live shows in wrestling. What did you think about the two very drastic style differences between the two shows, but having a chance to see them in such an important wrestling venue for the city?
Honestly, the Ric Flair match, it was way cooler just because of what it was. The crowd was super pumped. That arena was filled. For Dynamite, the crowd was meh, and the arena was not filled. So I don't know. I'm not sure I could really compare them, although a lot of AEW guys were on the card for Ric Flair. I don't know, it felt even though I didn't know a lot about JCP, like it felt nostalgic. Like you could feel it. Like people were pumped. You know, you had, you know, Undertaker there, and Brett was there, and Mick Foley was there. Like all these people were there, like watching this moment. Like Charlotte was there, but like she couldn't be seen because, you know, contracts.
Mhm.
But, you know, it was really cool. You know, AEW was, if it had maybe been an AEW pay-per-view, it may have been different. But yeah, I mean, it was just cool.
Something that she said just crossed my mind. When's the last time before that show that the name in the main event sold out the arena? I can't remember one. Maybe not since, good grief, maybe not since the Ruthless Aggression era, when John Cena had just become a big deal and his name in the main event sold out the arena, maybe like in a Boston or something. But the fact of that Ric Flair will be there wrestling, that's all you need to know. If that had been the only match on the card, that arena would have been sold out. When's the last time you could say that?
Actually, you know what? I could say this year. WrestleMania tickets weren't hot until Stone Cold said.
That's a good point. That's a good point. And we didn't know he was going to wrestle either. We just knew he was going to be there.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, but once he made that announcement, those tickets started selling.
Well, they sold out the Asylum, and the Fairgrounds was the initial venue where they were going to do it, and they sold out so quickly they moved it to Municipal and then sold out Municipal within probably the first week of them being on sale the second time. They were sold out again. Wasn't that about right? When we went though,
to get the tickets, because I got the tickets when it was at the Fairgrounds. Like, I literally sat there at work, like, just waiting and to get the tickets. And, like, I got them, and my other buddy in the office, he didn't get them.
Wow.
And we were on at the same time.
Wow. I know we got to continue, but that brings up a question I have to ask you guys. If The Rock doesn't show up after these record-breaking sales for WrestleMania, what the heck is going to happen with all those tickets?
You mean for 39?
Mm-hmm.
He's not coming till 40. There's no way.
Apparently, over 150,000 people think he is.
Wow.
I read, and it might be just rumors on the sheets, but I think it was maybe one of the sports ketas or one of those kinds of peoples in the world. They were saying that The Rock has said that he's got obligations all the way through April in Q1. So there isn't a lot of available time to do any kind of story build. So it would almost be he would just have to show up and be like, here's a WrestleMania match, you know? Like, not to say
it would have to be all satellite feed.
Yeah, it would all have to be built up with like vignettes and stuff because he wouldn't be able to be live. But if he's in ring shape, it's not going to take out of the question of a possibility of him showing up. I just don't feel like 39 is the one where you would want to use that pop. I feel like rounding out on a good even 40 would make sense for that one.
But it's in Hollywood. It's in Hollywood.
But he doesn't live there. He lives in Atlanta.
And we know that Roman's not going to lose the belt before then. They've already all but said that. And it won't be a title match because they can't have Roman beat it's going to be this whole mess. I personally think The Rock shows up at 40. That would be my bet.
So you talk about him not being able to make appearances. Stone Cold didn't make appearances.
True.
You saw Ranch. Stone Cold, Rock, Hogan, even Cena. They're so big, they don't have to be in the arena. Like, yeah, the fans love it when they pop in, but you just put their name and like that tease. Like even the year that Cena went against Undertaker at Mania, people were excited just because Cena was going to be there. Like he wasn't full time anymore. There's some guys that are bigger than the sport.
Yeah.
And for the guys that have gone beyond WWE and gone beyond pro wrestling, that if you just say their name, something's going to happen. It's like the whole thing with WrestleMania, the first one, when they said Muhammad Ali was going to be there. He was such a huge draw.
Yeah.
He didn't have to do any promos or anything. He really couldn't at that point in time in his life. But
Bobby,
yeah,
can I clarify something?
What?
I'm not saying that The Rock has to do vignettes to get over. What I'm saying the man is fucking busy. Like, he's got a lot going on.
It still has to be a story. For him to go against Roman, they have to build some kind of story because they are family. So there has to be a reason. You know what I mean? So even if he's not there doing vignettes and promos, they still need to build the story of like, Roman has fucked up so much, has fucked the bloodline up so fucking much that The Rock has to come in and do whatever. You know what I mean? Like, there has to be some kind of fucking story.
I mean, they've already done it in a junket interview. The woman who was interviewing him said, "Hey, I got something to ask you. Who's the tribal chief?" And he said, "Who's the tribal chief?" "Lady, you're talking to him." All Roman has to do is go in the air and go, "Excuse me, Dwayne, what did you say? I'll see you in Hollywood, buddy." Done.
Yeah. And they planted that same junket to where another guy asked him if he acknowledged him. And if you watch the Rock show, which I hope you don't lose that bet and have to watch that show, but if you watch
good show.
There's an interaction with them on there with Dewey.
Young Roman.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, this, we'll save it for WrestleMania or something like that. So they're planting the seeds. So this could just be a long-term story that the blow-off, you've got to like the rabbit. You've got to look at the clues to get to the blow-off.
100%. I agree with Allison. I want a story. I want interaction of some kind. Unfortunately, I feel like we're at that age in the business, like Bobby said. Even though we know there's no way The Rock is winning, even though we know Roman would not drop the title, even though we know there doesn't need to be much of a build, all you have to do is put on the marquee, Roman Reigns, Rock, nothing else needed. It's done. That's all you have to do. And I as a wrestling fan, I hate that because I live for the story. But unfortunately, those two names, that's all you have to do.
Well, gentlemen, I hate to rain on this parade, but this is a conversation about the big gold belt.
Hey, The Rock held the big gold belt.
Let's look at 1996 and Bash at the Beach. What happened there with the infamous Hogan turn? I'm pretty sure all four of us would put it up there with one of the biggest heel turns of all time. When he joins the Outsiders, he's the third man on their team. That is the build that goes to his second title reign of almost a whole nother year. And this is when the first time he won the title over the Giant, and he took the spray paint and he spray painted the letters NWO. Dave, as a guy who was watching wrestling as a kid at this point, you and I are close to the same age. What was your first thought when Hogan turned heel and then you saw him spray paint the NWO letters on the title belt?
2 words, and I can't say them because of my faith and because of inappropriateness. I was legit fuming, dude. I was fuming. Ric Flair had held it. Sting had held it. Savage had held it. Red and Yellow Hogan had held it. This is the most prestigious, beautiful title, and you're spray painting it. This isn't the underneath part of an interstate. This isn't the side of a broken down, ransacked building. This is the most beautiful, prestigious belt in the business, and you're spray painting it like it means nothing. And then saying this isn't even the world championship. It's the new world order belt. Hogan, what the heck are you doing? He got me. He got me. Hated him with a passion. Loved him, loved him, loved him. And within 30 days, hated him and wish I'd never saw him.
Bobby,
that's magic.
What'd you think about the Hogan turn?
Oh, man, it killed me. I'm a Hulkamaniac, and he gets in the ring with Mean Gene and tells us to suck it. It was incredible. I was watching my hero, become this other person that I'd never seen before. I wasn't, his heel turn in the early 80s, that was before I started watching wrestling. I didn't know he was ever a heel. I've only known the All-American hero UA in the WWF, and to see that, it was man. But it became so cool, I fell back in love with him. It was just the black and white vignettes with him and Nash and Hall. It was cool. And it's kind of funny because as you're watching it, obviously I'm a little bit older at this point, 96.
You're a lot of you're 96 years old. You're old as fuck.
Shut up. But in 96 compared to 86, I was starting to watch this. I was well, wait a second. I was Nash and Hall are kind of cool, and Hawk's not really all that cool.
By association, he is.
Well, by 96, he was the old guy anyways. He didn't have a chance.
Yeah. Yeah, but then looking back, it's like, well, that's what Dusty Rhodes did his entire, last like 20 years in the business was.
Don't you speak a foul word of the Dusty Rhodes on my show. The American Dream is he's up there. You leave that man alone, sir.
You'll have high times.
Yeah, Dusty invented it, and Hogan perfected it with tagging on to the younger guys, the more over guys, to keep your name relevant. That's what he did in the NWO. Dusty did that. Dusty even tried to join the NWO. So, but yeah, it's this run for Hogan. This was the hottest WCW was. This was what what is it, 84 weeks or 86 weeks or whatever it is.
83 weeks. You almost got it right.
Hey, bro.
You're so smart.
Kayfabe.
Kayfabe died in the 90s.
Brother.
Kayfabe died with the steroid
Did you cry,
trials.
though, Bobby, when he turned? Did you cry?
No, I didn't cry.
I did.
I don't think I cried. I don't remember crying when he turned heel. I remember crying the night Owen Hart died. Like, I just remember, like, panicking because I didn't know what was happening. I was, like, 13 years old. And, like, it was a big deal because I was watching the pay-per-view live the night it happened. I don't think I didn't cry the night Hogan turned.
Well, let me take that back. I didn't cry the night Hogan turned or the night after. I fumed when he spray painted the belt. I distinctly remember I did cry when the New World Order lured Sting into the ring and they ambushed him like 12-1. They beat him within an inch of his life in the ring. I was bawling my eyes out because Sting was my guy. So,
Sting held the belt 6 times, the same as Hogan. I want to get to one thing before we dive into Sting, though. What's up?
How many days did Sting hold it?
I don't care. I think Sting is maybe the most overrated male wrestler to ever do it. But
shut your mouth.
I know, Bam. I love you. You're my brother, but
You've been more overrated than the Young Bucks?
No.
Are they even rated?
Are they rated?
I was gonna say, are they even rated?
I don't even need to say anything to that. What did you guys think about Lex Luger winning the title belt over Hogan on Nitro when he finally derailed Hogan in the NWO? WCW came out. They finally got their win. NWO had been running rampant all the way through the program. They had done, by this point, they had already done, sold out the first NWO branded pay-per-view. They were trying to get their own show on the air with an unofficial brand split. But when Lex Luger secured that victory on Nitro, what was it like to have a chance for WCW to have their belt back?
I watched it live, and I promise you the next door neighbors heard me. I went nuts, dude. I was so excited to see that happen. And then when all the talent flood the ring, when the referees come out, when the agents come out, I think J.J. Dillon, who was the commissioner at the time, I think even he came out. It was like the entire company's like, finally we got one back, and that's what sold it for me. It wasn't just a solitary. Oh, Lex Luger did it. They made it literally like WCW. The company got a win tonight. That was huge. I was so excited.
Yeah, it was the faces and the heels all coming together as a company. Bama, you're probably used to you probably saw what happened at the Tennessee game when they all charged the field.
Which by the way, Will, I just sent you a picture on Twitter. You're gonna love it.
Live reaction right now.
Yeah, but yeah, that was amazing. That was, and I didn't see it happening because Luger was over, but I didn't see him Hulk Hogan over or World.
Alabama making home field improvements.
Yeah, they put up 2 more goalposts.
It'll help you guys out. It'll help you win that.
Oh, no, 4 more.
Yeah.
Okay, Bobby, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're. Yeah, like I said, I didn't see Luger. I didn't see Luger as championship material at that point in time, and for that win, and especially to win with the torture rack, pretty clean. Very few. He's part of a handful of guys that can say, I beat Hulk Hogan clean in the middle of the ring.
Yeah, he even said on an interview he didn't know till that day they were going to do that. Hogan said they need a hope spot. They need something. So we're gonna let you be the guy. And arguably, watching religiously like I did, that summer building up to Road Wild, Luger was red hot. The fans were fervently behind him. Every week he was racking another member of the NWO, and then he'd rack Bagwell, or not Bagwell. He'd rack Nash, then he'd rack Hall the next week. Then he got his hands on Savage, then he got his hands on Conan, and then he almost got Hogan, and Hogan dodged him. And for 30 days, Hogan dodged him. And then J.J. Dillon came out and said, Hogan, under contract, you have to defend that title within 30 days. Next week on Nitro is 30 days. We are going to have the championship match. Luger will challenge you next week on Nitro, and the NWO are barred from ringside. So it was a big deal.
Yeah, this was a great payback, I think, too, for Luger in his career, because he got brought up to WWF to be the Hogan replacement.
Yes.
And he couldn't do it. He couldn't live up to it. It was too big of shoes to fill. When he first came into the NWA, he got thrown in the Horsemen. He's in the most elite group, and he's green as green can be. And Luger to come this far in his career within 10 years to defeat Hulk Hogan, to be the man. I know this isn't his first championship, but this, I think, was his first time actually being over to the extent that he was. And I think this was the most over he was ever in his career.
And when he won it in 1992, he was too young. They should have waited at least another year or two on him.
Do you think Lex Luger is one of those guys that were not over because he was a super great worker, but more so because he was just a specimen of a man? Like his physique was kind of like an Ultimate Warrior almost.
That and his natural dadgum strength, he could pick up and rack anybody.
He did. He put Yokozuna in a torture rack. Let's not forget that happened, guys. Yokozuna was 500 pounds, and this dude picked him up in a fireman carry. Allison, are you drinking vodka?
I'm drinking Diet Coke.
When Luger was in NWA, WCW, he was the biggest guy in there. I think he got exposed when he went to WWF that he was no longer the biggest guy. He looked
right.
So that wasn't going to replace Hogan. The WWF run was a failure because he's trying to replace Hogan. The 92, I think, was a failure championship because he's replacing Flair. So he's replacing the two biggest guys in the two biggest companies. And I think it took until 97 for him to come into his own to where he could be that guy. And, backstage, you hear a lot of stories about Luger not being a likable guy. But now, due to all his health things, I've met him a couple times. He's a really cool guy to talk to. He actually is a really, really cool guy. He actually signed a picture for me of him holding the WWF championship. That one time at the TV taping, they had him come out with the belt, just to test run and see what people were going to do with him in WWF.
Yeah, he's a brother in Christ now. Sting actually led him to Christianity, so I'm really glad to call him a brother. And Allison, I just sent you part 2 of the match that we're talking about. When you have time, go watch it. I'm telling you, the emotion is so real. The fans went nuts. I
watched this one.
Oh my gosh, they were rabid that night. I don't think that building has a roof anymore. It was crazy to watch the reaction when he got that belt, only to lose it 6 days later.
5 days, because he dropped it back to Hogan. And thank you for doing my job, because that's the perfect segue, Dave.
You're welcome.
He dropped the belt back to Hogan after 5 days when they went to Road Wild, not Hog Wild. Really similar pay-per-view names. Then Hogan dropped it to Sting. So we get to Sting as the icon that he is in professional wrestling. And I jokingly say he's overrated. Dave, you and I talked the other night on when we were doing this or that. In WCW, he's kind of up there. He's the guy. A lot of people say when you think WCW,
I'll say number 1.
You put him up there at the top of the list. As a champion, what do you think about Sting in 2 versions? Before he was the Crow Sting, and then after he made the switch in WCW when he made his return. So let's kind of deep dive into the Sting side of this real quick and kind of talk about Sting in 2 entities.
Yeah, again, 1995. So the first Sting I saw was flat top, blonde, wearing all the colors, high energy, Stinger splash, about knocked the guy through the turnbuckle, Scorpion Deathlock done with intensity, screaming woo, which he stole from Ric Flair, but he did it differently. But doing that, just getting the crowd hyped up and behind him. Every match he's in, it's going to steal the show because Sting just had that knack to do that. It was so easy to love him. He was a great baby face. And he was the flag bearer for WCW. He defended it against the Horsemen. He defended it against the Dungeon of Doom. He defended it against all these up-and-coming factions. He was a gatekeeper. The new star would come in. Sting would be one of the first feuds they had because he wanted to prop them up and go, hey, you're in the ring with me, dude. I'm the franchise. You steal the show with me, you're going to be a star here. So that's kind of what he did. When he turned into the Crow Sting, I'll never forget the night he cut that promo after Fall Brawl where he wouldn't even look at the hard camera on purpose because he didn't want the at-home audience to see, the emotion in his face. And then he left. And then when he left the ring that night, that was the same night that X-Pac joined the NWO as Six. He had joined them the same night. I'll never forget. Six flipped a switch, and all of a sudden, all this paraphernalia started falling from the ceiling, and it had NWO, and it had like stuff they were saying. Basically, we won War Games, so now the war's over. We've won. We're going to take over the whole thing. That's when they started promoting the NWO separate show they were going to be starting to do. So, yeah, so he goes away. We don't see him for, I'm trying to remember exactly, it was like at least 2 months, maybe almost 3. We don't see him for at least that long. By then, his hair had just gone below his ears to like his mid-neck, and we see him sitting up in the rafters with just white face paint starting. I think a little bit of black at his eyes. But then it's like every time we saw him after that, the face paint kept morphing and changing into finally what he decided he was going to have. And then he started showing up in people's matches. And he adopted the new Scorpion Death Drop, the reverse DDT. Then all of a sudden, one week he had a baseball bat and he had the big trench coat. And then, but the intriguing part for me is he never said a word. This is the Stinger who you couldn't. Yeah, well, I was saying this is the Stinger that you couldn't shut him up and you couldn't keep him from having high energy. Now he's slow, he's methodical, he's not talking, he's mysterious. You don't know, is he with you or against you? You know nothing until uncensored 1997 when he repels in the middle of the main event and takes down Hulk Hogan. And at that moment, there's a hope spot. Okay, he's still with WCW, and he's basically saying the reason I am the way I am is because of what you black and white boys did to me. And I'm wearing the very thing that you did. And so I'm going to make it my mission to take you down one by one. And after then, he only targeted NWO members all the way building to, as we're about to get to, Starrcade 97, where he took down the crown jewel and got the world championship.
There's only one crown jewel, sir, and that's Chase Owens in New Japan.
Oh, my God. Put your boy over, Bobby. He's about as bad as Hogan with that kid.
But you don't even like him.
And he owes you money. He's a friend of the show. He's your personal boy. And when I tried to get him on for an interview, that motherfucker still had the gall to tell me it was $200. Vince Russo didn't make $200 off of me. I'm not paying Chase Owens $200 so I'd get 5 views on YouTube because nobody knows who the fuck Chase Owens is.
But bro, he's for life and all this other crap that they do. Kenny Omega.
I'm Team Maurice Shadows. Fuck Chase Owens.
Ooh.
And he was rude to your grandmother.
And he was super rude to your grandmother, and he shaved his beard in her sink, and he didn't clean his stuff up. Like, no. Bad Chase. Bad.
I wonder why he doesn't want to come on the show.
Because of you, Bobby.
Because of you, Bobby. So when Sting got the belt, there was some stuff. Bret Hart was involved. He had came over. That was the whole referee thing after the screw job.
Yeah.
So looking at what happened with Bret in Montreal between him and Shawn, when he first got the WCW, this was his first kind of paid gig with the company. How do you think they handled Bret when they brought him over?
The way he's like a mid-carder. No, it was terrible. They at first they I was just kidding, Bama.
No, I was gonna say like a fart in church. That's how bad it was.
Yeah, like they mishandled it.
Farts are always funny, by the way. I don't care where you're at. Farts are always funny.
They should have brought Bret in when he was hot, right after the screw job.
Yep.
They waited for whatever reason. They came out with the Canadian flags. He was free of his contract. He could have just come right in. Like he should have been on Raw the next night. Like you waste, Ravishing Rude on both shows because he doesn't have a contract. Like Lex Luger, same thing. Debuts the day after. Like Bret was the hottest thing in wrestling, and not even wrestling, it was talking mainstream.
He put the letters on the screen. You
Yeah,
know,
so
like on Survivor Series.
It was literally the worst timing because the moment he's free, great, we can get Bret Hart. This is awesome. Oh, crap. We got a Sting and Hogan story going on here. It was the worst time to do that. Arguably, if they had known they were going to get him, then what they should have done is have Sting and Hogan at like Halloween Havoc. And then the moment he comes in, he's the immediate new guy going after either one of them. But the fact of they were embroiled in this, and literally it took the air out of the whole story because now we have to have Bret on this show. We can't put him anywhere else. It doesn't make sense. He's got to be in the main event. And so now this literally year-long build to this match at Starrcade should have been the biggest match of the year. Now we have to get Bret in. Now we have to get a controversial referee. Now we have to have the match go over. And Sting, unfortunately, had this ring rust. And Hogan doesn't have the easiest style to adapt to. So you have all these. It was the perfect storm to be the perfect letdown. And I'm sorry, I hate watching that match now because I now think what it could have been and should have been, and then what it is. It's so sad.
I think they should have figured out a way to either get Savage involved with Bret or Flair involved with Bret, and make that an immediate. Okay, you know what? You beat these number 2 guys in WCW and get to Hogan or Sting, but they just put a referee shirt on him and tried to fake the Montreal screw job. Yeah, and they blew it. It was terrible. Nick Patrick didn't do a slow count. It was a normal count, and it looked terrible. It was terrible on WCW's part. It was terrible on Bret's part. It was terrible on Hogan's part. The execution was awful. And I think Bret says something about execution and stuff like that. He's the best at it, but this was definitely not his best execution.
Excellent at it.
He was excellent at it. So Sting won the title at Starrcade. Then it was vacated because of the issues that he had with the finish with Nick Patrick and Bret Hart and all of that. And then they used about a 60-day build to Super Brawl 8. And it was between him and Hogan again. And this was the rematch. Do you think this was kind of the chance for him to really show he deserved the win over Hogan the first time? Because they built the story in to vacate it, then they built it for 60 days. Then when they gave him the win the second time over Hogan, was this kind of the I told you so moment for him to be like, I am as big as this guy or bigger?
Oh, for sure. But don't forget, the night after Starrcade on Raw, Sting put the title back on the line in the main event against Hogan again. And everybody interfered with it, and the match didn't stand. So, yeah, it was so convoluted. I think they're like, look, we dropped the ball on this. Let's make the Super Brawl the Super Bowl, and let's make this the big deal. And then, thankfully, after that, when he did defend it and did basically retain it, that summer is probably some of Sting's best matches holding that championship. He had a great run with that title in the summer.
I agree with Bama. Like, I think that this was them realizing that, we screwed up at Starrcade. And that reign's not going to look good if Sting runs, for a long time with it. So we've got to give him a legitimate run, a legitimate win over Hogan. And, it turned out to be one of like Sting's longest ever reigns.
Yeah.
56 days.
One of Sting's longest ever reigns.
Shut up, Bobby.
What the reign after Super Brawl was only 56 days?
Correct. He lost it. He won it February 22nd, 1998. He lost it April 19th, 1998 to Randy Savage. Oh, yeah.
But then didn't he get it back the same year?
No, he didn't, because we're about to get into somebody who isn't named Hollywood Hogan or Sting. But before so, Allison, what do you think about Sting? I feel really bad because you weren't watching much wrestling in the mid-90s.
I wasn't allowed to.
You weren't allowed to watch wrestling?
Why is that doll back?
The doll keeps creeping Bobby out. That's her. What's that called? Your little buddy doll? What's it called?
It's a Buddy Lee doll.
Buddy Lee doll.
My parents.
Want to play?
My grandparents.
What's the fucking doll's name from the movie, the scary movie? Annabelle.
Annabelle.
Yeah. Is that like Annabelle? I feel like that thing's going to give me nightmares. It's always creeped me out as long as I've known you, and I've known you longer than my kids are alive.
This is why women become demented, because they sleep with dolls looking at them all the time.
So,
I put my doll
this is not wrestling related, but like backstory of this guy. He's like 100 years old. My great grandparents had a department store from 1911 until 1968. And this was like their display model for Lee jeans.
Mm.
I don't look like they would fit. They look kind of small for me.
It's so that you could feel what like the jeans like felt like.
Gotcha. Okay.
Fair enough. It's still a little creepy doll. I like it though. It's Bobby's gonna have nightmares because of it. He's brought it up like 4 different times.
Yeah.
Anyway, Allison, do you like Sting or hate Sting?
I don't mind Sting.
What do you think about Sting in 2022?
I think Sting in 2022 is
crazy.
Yeah, but he's not always crazy. Like, if I see Sting on my screen, like, I need you to jump off of something and not be lame. Like,
are you one of the few people that are pretty much just saying, go jump off of something high and don't die for me?
Pretty much.
Fair enough. I mean, I'm not mad at you for it.
He helped Darby Allin get over, but I feel like it's time for Darby Allin to kind of move on.
It's time for Darby to turn on Sting.
Yeah. I mean, not even necessarily turn on him, but like do his own sort of thing. Because like,
just honestly, say, I can do this by myself.
Yeah, like he needs to stop living in Sting's shadow because he's better than that.
Let me ask.
Now, Darby is a heel, ambushing you out of nowhere and doing crazy stuff with you out of nowhere. Yeah, I'd love that.
Let me ask you a question, Allison, as somebody who's with Sting specifically, do you feel like he's a big enough attraction that if you see his name on a card, you would still want to go see it just for the opportunity to see Sting work?
No.
Sting by himself isn't going to draw you anymore?
I mean, he would never have drawn me.
Even in 1980s when he was in UWF, not the AWA. Thank you, Bobby.
No, and I think like the weird, I guess because like I didn't see that first, but like weird Sting that's blonde and I don't like that. It's weird.
Yeah, if you grew up with it as a kid, that's your hero. Yeah. It's different.
Yeah, so like I'm catching like the reverse of it. It's like, oh, that's weird. I don't like it.
I can see that.
Like dark and scary Michael Myers, not Sean Penn on steroids.
The WWE Sting felt old, and this AEW Sting feels relevant and young, and like it's more exciting. Like I didn't really see much of the Joker Sting. I've gone back and watched some YouTube of it.
Oh, it's awesome.
Woo! The most like character that he was ever like. He was just like nutty. Like he was. That seems like that was the most comfortable Sting was ever on the microphone.
Yes.
So yeah, I've got to watch more Impact. It's just Impact is very difficult to watch sometimes.
Him in the main event Mafia was weird. No paint, sunglasses, title on his shoulder, acting like a complete jerk. That was weird. I've never seen him like that.
Bobby, wasn't it you who told me that there's a different booking fee for Sting if he's in paint versus if he's not in paint? You have to pay 2 different fees for him?
Yeah, it's like $1,000 difference.
Just to get him to put face paint on?
Yeah.
I mean, it takes time.
Yeah, it's an art. It's a piece of art. It takes him like 2 hours to do it.
Yeah, but it's funny like how guys book. Like Nikita Koloff, for example, if you let him preach in a church, his fee drops by half. At least last time I talked to Nikita about stuff, which was years and years ago. But yeah, if you let him preach, it's 1 fee. If you don't have him preach and you're just doing autographs, it's 1 fee. If you want him to throw a sickle, it's another fee.
Wow.
So it's but Nikita's an awesome person if you ever get to talk to him, and but yeah, he's another one of the guys very heavily involved in the church and spreading the word and stuff. So he's Luger's caretaker.
Yep.
Yeah, if Luger's at an event, Nikita's there because Nikita's taking care of him.
Yeah.
Saw him at StarCast as well. All right, I'm going to say a name, and I just want you guys to tell me what comes to mind. Bill Goldberg.
Don't say Bill.
Why?
Because he ain't Bill Goldberg. He's Goldberg. Goldberg.
Goldberg.
There it is.
I think the most overrated guy in the WWE Hall of Fame.
Most dangerous guy ever in the ring, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's definitely up there. I'd say one of the most dangerous workers to ever do it.
He ain't a worker, dude.
Do you think one of the issues with Goldberg as a worker in the ring was how quickly they expedited his training through the power plant? Do you think his issues in ring directly coincide with the fact his training got cut short because they wanted him on TV quicker?
I think it was his ego. I don't think the guy knew how to work. And if you look at his streak, he worked with some really good wrestlers. Like, it wasn't the guys that jobbed to him were future trainers. He had an ego. He came in, no respect for the business, no respect for the guys against him, and was surrounded by the cancers of Nash, Hall, Hogan that were telling him one thing, putting him over in his head. And he never wanted to or needed to improve because he always had that main event spot.
I will agree with that. Also, just the simple fact of they wanted him to be former Atlanta Falcon, tough guy that, holy crap, the spear he could throw, how fast he is, how strong he is. They wanted him to be an ex-NFL football player that can beat you in 10 seconds. That's what they wanted. So basically, it's okay. Here's how you would hit somebody in football. Can you just do it kind of like that, but don't kill the guy? And then, oh, by the way, here's a move called a jackhammer. I think it would look great for you because it'll show how strong you are. Even though you don't look like a bodybuilder, it'll show you how naturally gifted you are. So here's what I want you to do. Go in there, stomp around, act intense, hit him with a spear, jackhammer. If the match goes longer than 3 minutes, you lose $1,000. All right, go out there and have fun. So basically, that's what it was. I mean, I completely agree. It was a paycheck because, again, he busted up his body. He wanted to play the NFL for like another 5-6 years. They got taken away from him. So he goes in. I think he's working out at a gym or something. Somebody ran into him and said, you know what, I think you should try this. So then they brought him in. I really think, like you said, Will, number one, they wanted him to become a spectacle. Number two, they just wanted him to be him. They didn't want him to be a worker. They wanted him to be an attraction. They never
wanted
thought
Goldberg
of it.
to be Goldberg.
Exactly.
Did you ever see the match with him and Regal on Nitro?
No, I did. No, I didn't.
Where Regal didn't sell. Yeah, it's on YouTube. It's really impressive to watch. Like Regal took him to like he was the first competitive match that Goldberg had on TV.
So he took a spear and just got up?
No, it wasn't a spear because it didn't get that far in the match. Like Regal did the job, but he wanted to make sure Goldberg knew, hey, you're not in the ring with just anybody. You're in the ring with a guy that has been working since he was 16 years old. In the Carney circuit. So yeah, it's a really incredible match to watch. Like if you're gonna watch a shoot, that's a pretty fun shoot to watch. So Goldberg versus Regal from Nitro.
If I could ask one question to either Goldberg or whoever was booking his matches, it would be the match he had against Wrath. Because the moment the bell rang, Wrath still had his helmet and his cape and his breastplate on, and Goldberg speared him, jackhammered him, and pinned him, and he hadn't had a chance to take any of that off. That stuff is not safe to get bumped in, especially if it's got any metal stuff in it. I wonder if they literally told him, look, Goldberg, the moment the bell rings, no matter who you're in the ring with, go. And I wonder if he didn't think, okay, I need to wait on this guy to take his stuff off, because that was my first thought, because Rav laid there for about a minute with somebody like trying to help him get his helmet off and stuff. I think Goldberg almost legit killed him.
Yeah, I think it's very telling if you look at Goldberg's Hall of Fame. The shots they pan out to the crowd, the boys had left. Like most of the boys had left. Like they did not respect him. No. I know Bret this past week has actually called for him to be taken out of the Hall of Fame. Obviously Bret's got issues with him. Like you can talk to Bret about cutting the grass, and somehow he's going to turn it around and be like, Goldberg sucks, and he grass.
Every chance that, like, on every bio that Bret is on, he somehow manages to mention how Goldberg ended his career.
Yep.
If you were one of the greatest to ever do it and it got cut short because somebody was green in the ring and injured you, I would probably do the same thing.
No, I mean, I don't disagree with Bret doing it. I'm just saying, like...
Let me ask you guys a question. All right. And in true Will Gray fashion, I just want your reaction because that's how this works on my show, and I just do it on the fly. Hollywood Hogan got another win down the road. It was after Goldberg's streak had ended. And we're looking at a point in WCW's history that some could say was the beginning of the end. It was before Russo came in, and directly before Russo took over, Kevin Nash booked for the company for 6 months in 1998. And it started with him beating Goldberg and winning the title. And then 8 days later on Nitro, the finger poke of doom. He literally got in the ring. Hogan hit him in the chest with his finger. He took the bump, and Hogan pinned him 1, 2, 3 for the title. Like, in wrestling, do you think this like the screw job in a sense that it just pulled the curtain back completely for the fans? It was just a complete hoax. It was garbage the way it was written. Or are you under the impression that it was like the rejoining of the NWO, getting the teams back together, the Outsiders and Hogan? Like, what do you guys think of the finger poke of doom and the way Nash booked all of that to happen in the summer of 98?
I think it depends on who you ask. I mean,
or winter of 98. Sorry, not summer.
Yeah. I think it depends on who you ask. When I did the Attitude Era, this or that, Rob, who was on the show, said if he was Eric Bischoff, he would have booked it the exact same way. Because number one, all the band's back together. The original Black and White have rejoined. Number two, how the heck would you have seen that coming? So it's a complete total swerve. Oh my gosh, they got us. Number three, Nash and Hogan in the main event for the World Heavyweight Championship. Even if the match ends the way it ends, you sold the building out to have that match happen. So it's one of those things. Personally, to me, I didn't like it because of not only that, but also Tony Schiavone in the commentary going, Mick Foley's going to win the championship. That'll put butts in the seats. Yeah, it's like the entire by that point, it had been completely an agenda. Oh my gosh, they're getting traction over on the other show. We've got to up our ante and do crazy stuff and start spoiling things and do stuff that was going to, I know social media didn't exist then, but this stuff's going to steal the headlines that, oh my gosh, you won't believe what happened on Nitro in the main event. Who cares what happened in the other main event on the other show? So I think at that point they started getting a little too smart for their own good and overbooking things, and instead of just letting the work in the ring do the talking for them. And I mean, good grief, by this point, the NWO had become the Black and White, the Red and Black, the LWO, the Blue WO on ECW. I mean, it has become so watered down that they thought this would be the shot in the arm, and they just didn't do it the right way.
Yeah, and you got to, this was the night that the streak ended. 83 weeks ended. Like, this was it, right?
Yep.
Yes. Like, Nash and Hogan, Southern term, they got too big for their britches. And I don't think that they thought that they could do anything wrong. And this was, Schiavone was one thing that they did wrong with it. This match was wrong. I do think that Goldberg would be better not being the champion, because the winning formula on WWF was Austin chasing the belt. He'd win it here and there, never really a long reign. And he was also beatable. Goldberg wasn't beatable.
Right.
He wasn't believable to be beaten, even though he did have a lot of guys around him. Like, I will give WCW the upper hand on current WWE, because I don't see anybody beating Roman Reigns, because he is a Goldberg type. Like, he's just that unbeatable champion. But in WCW at this point in time, you did have Nash, you did have Hogan, you had these other guys that could foreseeably beat Goldberg. So Nash's win over Goldberg is very controversial, and his loss to Hogan, very controversial. But to steal a line from Eric Bischoff, I think it was supposed to be best for business. It just turned out to be bad.
There's one guy that can beat Roman Reigns. It's the one guy Roman's never beaten at a pay-per-view.
Goldberg. No?
Goldberg.
Seth freaking Rollins.
Seth freaking Rollins needs to have every belt in every promotion on the entire world.
Even at the Royal Rumble, Roman got DQ'd. Seth holds a win in that match.
I think
he's
Seth
never
Rollins,
beaten Seth.
If bees had knees, they would look like Seth Rollins. I'm just saying.
Oh.
My Twitter account may as well just be a Seth Rollins stan account at this point because that man does
All right.
no wrong.
You take Seth, I'll take Becky.
I love that plan. All right, before we get into the Russo-fed era that ended WCW, and I'll just go ahead and say it, I want to talk about one person specifically. He's one of my favorite WCW superstars of all time. We're talking about him because it's my show. It's me. It's DDP, Diamond Dallas Page. What did you guys think about him as champion? He had multiple reigns with the big gold belt. He was a late bloomer, didn't start wrestling till his late 30s, mid-30s, which is old in a lot of cases. For him not to have his first professional match until his mid-30s, it was a pretty unique. What do you guys think about Diamond Dallas Page and what he was doing for the business there in the 97, 98, 99 range?
Bobby, you go first this time.
Page really isn't over with me. This point in time, I do think that Page was impressive because I remember him from the AWA as the manager of the Diamond Stud and the Diamond Stable. Page definitely came a long way. He definitely deserved what he got when you know the backstory. As a fan, though, I felt like this was a mid-card guy that just kind of came out of nowhere. You could obviously see that he was friends with Hall and Nash, neighbors with Bischoff, so you knew why he was getting the push. After a few years, he did get over with me. I will say that. Like, the first couple reigns, not so much. But, yeah, Page deserves to be where he's at now, in hindsight. But in that sight of actually watching in 99, I was like, who the F is this guy? And why are they pushing him? He looks terrible. You look like he would be a bouncer. Not even a bouncer. He would be the guy at the end of the bar just drinking. Like
he managed the bar, right? That's
so
he
would
started.
Pretty much be a bouncer, man. Like that's pretty much every bouncer in Nashville. You just described him.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like Page, in hindsight, I respect Page's career at this point in time. In that 99 2000 run in WCW. At the time, though, I was just like, this guy doesn't belong on the same level as the NWO, Sting, Flair, Savage.
DDP, my first remembering of him was him versus Johnny B. Bad, a.k.a. Mark Marrow, when he was in WCW. They had that rivalry over Kimberly, his actual wife, who was managing Mark Marrow. So that was funny. Then when he turned babyface in 1996, I think, when he turned babyface, it's funny how everybody calls The Rock the People's Champion when Stone Cold was really the People's Champion in the WWE. But in the WCW, nobody had the love of the people, maybe arguably than Sting, more than Diamond Dallas Page. This guy is just like us. He comes out, he does bang, then he immediately jumps in the crowd, he high-fives all of us, then he gets in the ring, he does his thing, then he goes back out through the crowd, he doesn't go back up the ramp. Now, we know the biggest reason is because if he goes back up the ramp, the NWO are going to ambush him. So that's why he goes back through the crowd so they can't get to him. But the biggest thing for me, and it's the reason why the RKO Diamond Cutter is my favorite finisher of all time. He is an average wrestler, but the moment he hits that Diamond Cutter, he's number one. There's just an art of psychology with him of every single week. I'm never going to hit it the same way twice. I'm never going to do it in the same manner. I'm never going to do it at the same point in the match. You will never see the move coming. And when it does, the whole room explodes. It is such an art form to get a move over the way he did. My favorite ever was when he was dressed as La Parka and he hit Randy Savage with it. And then he ripped the mask off and he showed everybody that it was DDP in the match. That was one of the best moments ever. And of course, the one where he got the people off the top rope with it, when he hit Bischoff with it, I about lost my mind because I've been waiting for him to hit Bischoff with that move. It was just such a great moment to watch this guy get over. So to me, when the term People's Champion is thrown out there, I always think DDP, not The Rock, because he truly was a man of the people.
Yeah, the music too, that Nirvana riff that he had.
Yeah, like that, one note difference. One note. That's it.
That thing was fire. That thing really was fire.
Cool.
He does yoga.
Allison, do you know anything about DDP? I just realized I muted myself. I had to say it twice.
You are muted.
Was I not muted? Oh, it was just muted on OBS then. Dave, you got so excited. I was having to adjust your levels on the fly because
sorry.
No,
My bad.
no.
My bad.
I love
I'll
it.
back up.
Get excited. No, don't stop.
I'm so excited.
I just love it. I love the excitement.
I have never watched a DDP.
Don't watch anything after 2000. Everything before.
Well, the
I've
reason
seen him in person.
he's a cool dude. He likes to talk about yoga.
Yeah, he's the biggest self promoter. Like you talk about Brett talks about Goldberg. You cannot talk DDP about like without him mentioning one of his products or what he's doing with Buff Bagwell or Jake or yoga. It's
Look,
insane.
dude, I got a lot of side hustles. I get the fact that sometimes you just want to talk about all the shit you got going on. I feel that.
He's like the Nick Saban of wrestling. All these people fail, and then they come to him, and they come out successful.
So he also sold the
Bama. Yeah, I'll mute you if you bring that man up on my show again. I'm going to ask you guys kind of a loaded question to round it out, and I appreciate y'all for coming on. The Russo era of WCW is notoriously known for being overbooked. Do you think the one thing they did right through the last 3 years of their existence was giving Booker T the title at the very end?
No, I think the first thing they did right, and I know you're going to hate this, Will, Chris Benoit. They gave him the title. He deserved the title. He's been working his ass off. It was BS what happened to him with Sullivan having the book. So I think Benoit was his first huge victory. I think what he did with Jarrett was a mid-carder at best. And it's Russo putting his boys in front of business. And Booker T, I will say Booker T, at that point in time, the best of 7 series that he had with Benoit, he was growing up the card. And should he have been world champion? I'm not 100% sold on it, but he did the best for his talent with that belt. And if it wasn't Russo, I don't think he would have ever had the chance.
I think Bischoff would have wanted to eventually, but there was always 3 or 4 guys bigger on the card than he was.
I think that was his biggest thing, his biggest holdup in his entire career, though, and that was kind of the rabid Wolverine, was the fact that he was always so undersized.
Yeah, Vincenzo had a unfortunate complex, and he still has it, unfortunately, and that is everything I did versus you, that's what got over. So when I come over, I'm going to do the exact same thing. So you know what? The biggest thing I had a headache with was that daggum NWO. So you know what? I'm going to rebirth it. Bret Hart will be the leader of it, and then Jeff Jarrett will be the leader of it. I'm like, let the daggum thing die, please. Without Hogan, Hall, and Nash, it ain't the NWO.
Yeah, we're going to be black and silver instead of black and white.
So bad. So bad. And I stopped watching probably 1999, but when I heard that David Arquette had won the belt, I'm like, they're done. They're done.
Greatest 12 days of WCW history.
David Arquette held the title. Vince Russo also wrote himself into the title. So, Dave, you say yes to Booker T. Bobby, you think it could have been somebody else for the end of it?
Yeah, and one of the guys that popped in my mind, and I know backstage-wise he probably wasn't mentally ready, Buff Bagwell was a guy that really paid his dues.
Yep, he could have been a champion.
Yeah, he had the look. He definitely had the heat. So, I think, I know Buff, again, backstage, you've heard a lot of stories about him. And, obviously he's going through a lot of stuff in his personal life. But
that's
I think
one
Buff
way to put it.
Yeah, especially where Buff came from. Like, when you first looked at Buff Bagwell with the American males, like, it was a jobber tag team. Like, it was like the young stallions of the old WWF.
I love the American males.
Dude, to have a tag team partner for like less than a year and get matching tattoos, that says a lot about like what you believe in this team.
Hey, they were 2-time tag team champs.
Look, I'm going to be honest. I will get matching tattoos for far less than being a tag team partner. This is the guy who has a taco dinosaur on his leg, though. I'm not exactly one to like put a lot of thought into my tattoos.
I say, Will, you've got the records there. Was Scott Steiner ever world champion in WCW?
Scott Steiner was a world champion. Scott Steiner held the belt. Scott Steiner held the belt one time for 120 days. He won it at Mayhem in November 26, 2000. It was in a straightjack steel cage match. He beat Booker T.
Yep. See, I wasn't watching then, so I didn't even know.
So closing remarks on WCW as they finished in 01. They got bought out. Booker T won the big gold belt as they closed down. before we transfer into the WWE Big Gold Belt, which we've already done because once again we did the shows backwards. What are your guys' closing remarks on the Big Gold Belt in 2001 as it exited WCW?
I think it lost some of its flair.
I hate you.
Yeah, it's prestige. I actually enjoyed the last couple years of WCW. The last 2 years, like it was hard to watch, like being a older fan, but at the same time, I could see them turning it around, and I was hoping they were going to turn it around, and I think they would have if the sale would have happened with Bischoff. The belt still though represents a lot, and there's even rumors now that they want to bring the belt back. Like Triple H wants to bring that belt back. So the belt itself, the way it looks, like just like the Winged Eagle, it's something that I think goes down in history as prestigious. And you see that belt, you want to win it, and that's why you want to be champion, is because you want that championship around your waist. So the belt to me didn't diminish much in the WWE, other than it was Vince never put it as high as the WWF championship. But to me, the shape of the belt, the way the belt looks, the actual physical title, that means a lot, and I think that's the biggest thing in pro wrestling. It was solid and there from 1986 until it was retired by Jericho in 2001. So its longevity, I think, says a lot, because if you look at WWE championships, they change every couple years because they're trying to sell a new toy. And WCW, that belt was the real championship.
Well said.
Allison, are you eating night crawlers?
Are you eating candy?
I love you. That's one of my favorite candies. Oh, they're so good. Oh, Trolleys are the best. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to say ditto to everything Bobby said. It's funny, even I know we're not really talking about it, but even in the WWE, the feuds over the big gold belt seem to have more passion and more veracity than the feuds over the WWE championship at the time, which I think was pretty much the undisputed championship from the moment the big gold belt debuted. And I think a lot of it honestly had to do with the people that were fighting over that knew the history. They knew this is a prestigious belt. It's a beautiful belt. I mean, Triple H could have easily said, I can wait and maybe feud over the other belt. But the thought of, okay, when I walk out of the curtain and that thing's draped around my waist and the flash bulbs and the lights are sparkling off that thing, and then I get on the apron of the ring and I do my big water spa and that thing's just glowing around my waist. There's something about that. And I think that's why even the crappy booking things we've all talked about tonight and the terrible matches and terrible business decisions, somehow it's like the slight bad taste in your mouth gets taken away a little bit because that beautiful belt is on screen. There's just something about it. It just does that. And I really hope that Bobby's right. I have a feeling Triple H doesn't want to move too quickly because he doesn't want to, make the shareholders go, what the heck are you doing, man? Plus, I would love to know the right situation with that, because I think once the belt was retired, I don't know if the NWA got any claims to it, but my gosh, if there's any way it can at least a hybrid of it. Like I've seen pictures of like the current belt with the logo and the big gold belt had a baby. The way it's just, I'll tell you, go find a picture of it. It looks gorgeous, and it has the W a little bigger than it used to look. But just if they could even do a semblance of this big, beautiful gold belt as a title to be won, I really think a lot of fans would really love that and love to see that come back. And I think it would also be a good thing to draw even those far out in the distance. We don't watch anymore since the Ruthless Aggression era. If they see that belt on screen, it might be enough to bring them back in.
Ric Flair really wants that belt back.
Oh, I want that belt back.
Yeah, when Triple H...
he wants to own the rights to it?
No, the belt that Ric Flair's talking about, Allison, is his globe belt, because he had the 10 pounds of gold.
That one.
No, Triple H has Ric Flair's 10 pounds of gold in his office at WWE headquarters.
Right.
He owns Ric Flair's title belt, and Ric Flair tried to sue to get it back. And he couldn't. Yeah, and he couldn't win.
The original 86 belt Hogan took. When Hogan beat Flair in 94, Hogan kept that belt.
Wow.
Yeah. and hasn't given it. I don't know if he's given it back to him since, but that's the internet rumor that I've seen is Hogan has the original 1986 belt.
Triple H has got the 10 pounds of gold, the NWA title, like the Dome Globe. He's got a Dome Globe in his office.
So, well, you tell me Ric Flair sued the WWE for that, or he's tried to sue Triple H for that?
My understanding was he tried to sue the WWE to get his belt back, his own personal property, because he was saying it was his belt, WWE just had it, and then he was trying to get it back.
So the one Triple H has hanging is not the one he's trying to get back.
No, that's his belt. That's the one he wants back. That's what I'm saying.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, like the 10 pounds of gold in Triple H's office is Ric Flair's 10 pounds of gold.
You'd think Hunter would just give it back.
Fight now.
Hey, you got to think too, like as big as this belt was and as important it is, Triple H could have invented any world championship and introduced any title on that SmackDown or Raw, whichever one it was.
Raw.
Raw. So yeah, but he chose this belt, that belt that had that lineage from '86, like his hero's belt, Ric Flair's belt, and
Ric Flair was in the faction with him in Evolution when he did it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's amazing to look back the WCW. Hogan is the one that held that title the longest, and Benoit the shortest.
Yeah.
Woo, gentlemen, it's been a marathon.
Woo!
We've crossed over ladies and gentlemen. Allison, sorry, we crossed over the 2-hour mark. This might be the longest episode of Botch Bots and Chair Shots, Dave. I appreciate it.
I'm sorry.
Don't know. I like talking. We talk about it. I think it's great.
No, time is the most valuable commodity we have, and I don't want to waste anybody's.
Just wait till I put Volume 1 and Volume 2 together. It's actually going to be Volume 2, then Volume 1, and I'm going to mix them all together, and it's going to be like a 4.5-hour long episode now with the entire history of the Big Gold Belt from 1994 to 2014.
Be longer than WrestleMania.
It will be longer than WrestleMania.
There's a very successful franchise that did that same thing. It's called Star Wars.
Whatever. Okay, gentlemen, this is my favorite part of the episode. Dave, plug your stuff. Tell everybody what you have going on, what you've got coming up.
All right. Thank you so much, Will, Bobby, and Miss Allison for having me on tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honor to rejoin you guys on Botch Bots and Chair Shots. Right here behind me, look for this Bammer Chatter logo anywhere you look on social media. Right now, like I said, tomorrow we're going to be doing a space at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which by the time you watch this, you're too late. But anyway, but we're going to be previewing Halloween Havoc and talking and do a little bit check your temperature on what the card's going to be about. I hope all of you will join me. I'd love to hear your takes on the card and on the matches and what y'all think is going to happen. I can tell you that we have a few episodes in the works that we're going to be recording here in the near future. The next major show on the Bammer Chatter, which is on twitch.tv/Bammer Chatter, as well as on YouTube. Type in Bammer Chatter Wrestling Podcast, and you can find me there. But I think the next major show we will do will be previewing Survivor Series in November. I'm very excited about that. The first ever War Games on the main roster. This is history in the making, so I cannot wait to do that show and talk to a great panel about that match. So anyway, yeah, again, hope you guys come over and check me out. Subscribe, follow, like, comment, all that good stuff. But most importantly, guys, like, follow, subscribe, comment, do everything for the Botch Bots and Chair Shots and the Smack Draw brand. These guys are amazing. They helped me get my jump start. I love Kyle, RN, Will, Allison, Bobby, all you guys as part of that brand. You're amazing.
We love you too, Dave.
Bobby is not part of Smack Draw. No, I'm just kidding.
By association. He's the Eric Bischoff.
He's the Eric Bischoff.
Don't tell KY that.
Bobby Mack, you're up.
Oh, yeah. You can always follow Yellow Shoe Guy on TikTok, Twitter, and Twitch. Just type in Yellow Shoe Guy. You'll see all the kind of comments that I say. You might not like everything, but you can always comment on all of it. So appreciate all of you guys. Follow me. I appreciate all you guys watching my stuff. TikTok, we are almost 5,000 strong, so keep following that. We want to get up to 10,000 so I can start making some cash.
Miss Sigel?
You can follow me on the tweeters and the TikTokies at justagirl918. I'm currently holding strong at 141 TikTok followers. I need 1,000 so that I can go live with Mr. Mac. Let's see. Once Will finally writes my script for...
I forgot to write your comic.
You did. Forget.
I'm saying that on air. I apologize.
I have a
The comic will be done and posted tomorrow. My bad.
Saturday. Actually, Saturday.
Oh yeah, we got a
because
show tomorrow.
We have a show tomorrow. So Saturday will be a new heel support group with Max and Colby. Good stuff. Help me get to be able to go live on TikTok. That's the thing I'm pushing now. So if you have a TikTokies, just a girl 918, just like my tweeters.
If Allison Hightower taught us anything, it's feet pics are the way to go. That's all I'm saying. Bobby's coming back. Bobby's wearing shorts. That's weird.
I always wear shorts.
All right.
Pants?
Let me think about my list. Follow Mr. 8984. That's RN. He's the host of the Rewind. Follow Kai Tai Show, UWO Rewind. Follow Ted the Hillbilly Heel. Follow Marie Shadows. Follow Ravaged Dragon. Follow MATTRIDDER. Follow Wrestling with the Truth podcast. Follow pretty much all my friends. Just follow my friends.
It's like Ruth.
And Marie Shadows. Marie Shadows. Follow Marie Shadows.
You said Marie.
Did I? Who did I forget?
What of ours did you forget?
Ted the Hillbilly Hill.
You got him.
Who did I forget?
You forgot IWG, as you do.
Follow the newsletter. Follow the Indie Wrestling Gazette at Indie Gazette. We do have some cool stuff working up right that. You'll see some Indie Gazette stuff coming up on IWTV. But now as we close another episode of Botched, and Share Shots, I want to take a minute. Thank you for listening. Remind you to go wherever you do anything on the internet. Like, follow, subscribe, unsubscribe, then subscribe again. Leave a comment telling me how great I am or how terrible I sound. Either way, it helps the algorithm. It helps find new listeners. If you're feeling really generous, be one of the VIP people, head over to patreon.com and donate to the SmackDown Podcast Network. You get some fantastic swag. We get some fantastic guests. It's a win-win for the Yellow Shoe Guy, for Bama Dave, for the boss bitch Allison Siegel. I am the Will Gray. Thanks for stopping by and listening, my people.
Tennessee still sucks.
Tennessee does not suck. We will be putting this up raw.
He doesn't edit shit.
I edit things.
Yeah, I always go back when I edit the church podcast. I edit myself a lot. I'm like, I talk too much.
Well, we do a pretty good job most of the time. We're still streaming. I haven't stopped recording yet. We do a lot of time, like a lot of good, where there's not a whole lot of dead time or downtime in the conversations. I pretty much try my best to keep that ball rolling. We did clock in at 2 hours.